Secretary. So this reshuffle is happening. It's a major one. Okay, those three people were all in cabinet previously, but a couple of cabinet members have lost their jobs. We know that Lucy Powell, who's the leader of the House, she was the one who famously said on any questions on the BBC a few weeks ago that we had that anybody talking about small boats was dog whistle politics. Well, she's now left government. Ian Murray, the Scottish Secretary, he is no longer in the cabinet either. So we'll have a new leader of the House. We'll have a new Scottish Secretary as well. The Scottish Secretary, Ian Murray, of course, slagged off Larry the cat, calling him a little S-word. Well, now Larry's had the last laugh, and Larry remains the cat. That's the main thing. But we know that there will be major changes. This all comes after the Deputy Prime Minister, former Deputy Prime Minister now, Angela Rayner, has lost her job. She has resigned from government. The letter she sent in resigning from government, very long and very detailed, but the fact was it all came down to what the independent advisor on ministerial standards, Sir Laurie Magnus, said in regard to the 7 principles of public life, and details the overarching duty on ministers to comply with the law and to protect the integrity of public life. The code begins by stating that ministers are expected to embody the principles of public service and to set a positive example as they govern in the national interest. Ministers should recognise that as office holders they are held to the highest possible standards of proper conduct and ensure that they are living up to those standards in their words and actions. And Sir Laurie Magnus said that she did not heed the caution contained in the legal advice, which acknowledged that it did not constitute expert tax advice and which suggested that expert advice be sought. That's exactly what the breaking news on Drive yesterday was. The breaking news was that Angela Rayner, her solicitors, had told numerous papers, including The Sun, that they'd released a statement saying that the advice they'd given her wasn't tax advice. Like, if a conveyancer is changing your house, if you're buying a new house, well, the conveyancer isn't a tax specialist. And as Laurie Magnus said, Sir Laurie Magnus said, the responsibility of any taxpayer for reporting their tax returns and settling their liabilities rests ultimately on themselves alone. I consider her unfortunate failure to settle her stamp duty liability at the correct level, coupled with the fact that this was established only following intense public scrutiny, leads me to advise you that in relation to the matter, she has breached the ministerial code. So that's what happened. She went. The wider cabinet reshuffle on the way now. Shabana Mahmood has been appointed Home Secretary, Yvette Cooper Foreign Secretary, David Lammy Deputy Prime Minister and Justice Secretary as well. So it's three-way switch there between them. What do you make of all of this? 0344 499 1000 is the number to call. You can text me 87222 with the word talk in your text. You can tweet me at talkTV. Follow me at Peter Cardwell. You can send me a WhatsApp text message. You can send me a WhatsApp voice message, less than a minute please, or you can give me a ring on 0344 499 1000. Simon has been in touch and says he's going to give Bowles the foreign minister job for a bit of a holiday. Well, that's Yvette Cooper, of course, and she keeps her name. Jane says, I'm glad Rayner is gone. Her colleagues are upset. They don't give a jot about the public. Swapping jobs isn't going to make this vile government any better. They should all go. And Simon says, what a joke. David Lammy, Deputy Prime Minister. Well, let's speak to Theo Usherwood now, who is with us, the political commentator. Theo, big day in politics is, of course, the Reform UK conference will be live in Birmingham a little bit later on in the programme. Nigel Farage has been talking about Angela Rayner and many other things as well. What do you think of the reshuffle so far? Just sum up the day for us, Theo, if you would.
I mean, it's been an extraordinary day, hasn't it, Peter? We weren't expecting this. I mean, going back to the beginning of the week, we knew as Keir Starmer brought in a number of economic heavy hitters to boost his the economic side of things in Number 10, seen as, of course, as a demotion of sorts for Rachel Reeves, the Chancellor, that he was increasing the economic expertise within Number 10 ahead of what's going to be a very difficult budget on November the 26th. That the Prime Minister was minded also to reshuffle some junior ministers, but obviously with Angela Rayner resigning as Deputy, not only Deputy Prime Minister, Communities Secretary and Housing Secretary, as well as Deputy Leader of the Labour Party, that created an opportunity for a much wider reshuffle, and Keir Starmer's decided to take it. David Lammy moves over to take the Justice brief. He was Foreign Secretary, of course, and he also becomes Deputy Prime Minister. So when Keir Starmer is away, then it will be Mr. Lammy facing off and against an assortment of Conservative front benchers, because Kemi Badenoch has always liked to shuffle her pack for substitutes to come in and take her place when Starmer's away, and of course she has to step aside, as is the convention. Yvette Cooper, who had the tricky issue of dealing with the small boats crossings over at the Home Office, now moves over to the Foreign Secretary. I mean, that's the third biggest post in government, a huge promotion for Yvette Cooper there. And then Shabana Mahmood, who I think has widely been regarded in Labour circles as dealing with a very difficult brief as Justice Secretary, goes over to the Home Office. Of course, we know that the government has faced an overcrowding crisis within the prisons. It has led to some very tough decisions when it comes to releasing people early, having only served 40% of their sentences. But it is viewed that actually Shabana Mahmood has made a relatively, within government at least, some of your listeners might disagree, but they in government there is a view that actually she's done well in that job as Justice, and therefore she gets promotion.
I think she's done well as Justice Secretary. I'm a former Special Advisor in the Ministry of Justice. As you know, it's a really, really tough department to make change in. And the time that Shabana Mahmood stood up was on the right side of history was when that absolute clown Sue Carr, who's the Lady Chief Justice, said in her guidance, in her committee's guidance, that it should be anything to do with your ethnicity. Your ethnicity should be taken into account when sentencing is done. That's absolute nonsense. And in fairness to Shabana Mahmood, she was against it. She tried to argue against the Lady Chief Justice, then introduced legislation to change it. So as far as Shabana Mahmood has, of all in Labour's cabinet, many of whom have done things I strongly disagree with, Shabana Mahmood has done at least one good thing. So the Home Office is a much tougher brief. It's a much larger department. There's a lot more money. There's a lot more at stake there as well. And of course, all this legislation, she'll have to see it through the Commons, that has been introduced in the last 6 weeks, and Yvette Cooper off on her summer holidays to the Foreign Office.
Yeah, and we'd heard that David Lammy's plane had been grounded, which gave he was due to take a trip to the Middle East, and suddenly he finds himself on the tarmac, unable to take off. So that was how he discovered that he was in for, moving across to the Justice brief in terms of departments. It's a demotion, but then he does get that, as I say, he gets that promotion in terms of becoming the Deputy Prime Minister. Interesting also just to note some of the comments that have been made by departing members from the government. They haven't gone quietly necessarily, Peter. Ian Murray, who at one point after the SNP rout in 2015 was Labour's only MP in Scotland, and he's argued that he'd played a pivotal role in winning back 36 seats last year. But he left with this warning for Keir Starmer, saying that politics is at a dangerous crossroads, and said that politicians should aim to bring, and I'm quoting here, prosperity, hope and our own communities together rather than furthering division and despair. Lucy Powell, of course, sacked as leader of the House of Commons. She leaves saying that the future of our democracy looks uncertain.
Just on Lucy Powell, actually, this is the minister she was the leader of the House of Commons. She was also on a BBC panel on the Are There Any Questions programme talking about rape gangs a few weeks ago. This is what she had to say there.
If anyone saw the documentary on Channel 4 about rape gangs, there was a resolution
Let's get that dog whistle out. I mean, absolutely outrageous and shocking comments from Lucy Powell. Now she doesn't have a job in government. I'll shed no tears for her, I'm afraid.
No, and that was just one of many gaffes, Peter. She previously said in an interview with your sister station Times Radio last year that there'd be a run on the pound if the government didn't press ahead with cutting the winter fuel allowance.
That's right.
So I think
they'll be breathing a sigh of relief that she's gone anyway.
Individuals in number 10 who couldn't wait to wield the axe on Lucy Powell's rise up to the top of British politics. So she's gone. I mean, the only person who the government announced, it became clear from number 10 at lunchtime was safe was Rachel Reeves, the Chancellor. Obviously, they wanted to ensure that there weren't any significant market jitters.
That's right, especially when she was crying previously in the House of Commons. The markets reacted and took a day to readjust as well. So we're waiting now. We're waiting to hear about who is the new Housing Secretary. That's a huge department. I used to work there.
We know that one.
Oh, sorry, do we? Who's that?
It's Matthew Pennycock.
Ah, okay. He was the Housing Minister,
He's the new Housing Secretary. Sorry, Peter. Yeah, he's the new Housing Secretary, and he was the deputy to Angela Rayner.
Yes.
And I think the view was just to steady the ship in the department. Angela Rayner, I think, was viewed in some quarters by senior civil servants as quote-unquote liking to delegate. And the person she delegated to a lot was her deputy, Matthew Pennycock. So
yes,
it's sort of seen as a rather seamless transition, that one.
Sure, certainly. So we're without a Scotland Secretary, is that right?
Yeah, that's my understanding.
Okay, we're without a Scotland Secretary. I expect Scotland will survive for a few hours. And we're without a leader of the House of Commons, but we've got a new Deputy Prime Minister. If you're just joining us, David Lammy, the new Deputy Prime Minister, Shabana Mahmood, the new Home Secretary, Yvette Cooper moves to Foreign Secretary as well, and then we have Matthew Pennycock, who is the new Housing Secretary. Mary from County Down's been in touch and says Starmer is trolling the country. Lammy is Deputy Prime Minister and Justice, Mahmood at home, a cavalcade of fools and incompetence. Adrian says Peter, so Starmer has shuffled the same pack of jokers. At least he's taken Lammy off the world stage. That can only be a good thing. I do think Yvette Cooper owes the victims of Epping a public apology before she turns the light off in the Home Office, says Adrian in Horsham. Theo's still with us, Theo Usherwood, the political commentator. Theo, I do wonder where this leaves Keir Starmer, because his authority is not in a better position today than it was yesterday, is it?
No, and there's one position which we haven't actually talked about, which Angela Rayner has of course resigned, and that's her position as Deputy Leader of the House.
That's another headache, isn't it?
Deputy Leader of the Labour Party.
Yes, another headache.
Deputy Leader of the Labour Party. And of course, that's not a position that Keir Starmer has the authority to fill. It has to happen as a result of an election. Now, they've tried to, in the Labour High Command, they've tried to stitch it up by saying that any candidate who wants to be considered to be the deputy leader of the Labour Party needs to have 80 MPs supporting them, and so that the hope is that by doing that they can rule out a hard left candidate, somebody like Richard Bergen potentially, who could cause all sorts of problems for Keir Starmer. But there is a significant rump on the soft left of the Labour Party, who you would think would be able to come up with, if they organise themselves properly, who would be able to come up with a candidate who'd really take it to the established candidate who would come from the cabinet, who has to, of course, stand by the record. And you know, from having watched what happened with the Conservatives, firstly, when Boris Johnson went through that leadership contest to take over from Theresa May back in 2019, what we saw with the contest that Liz Truss then won, and obviously Rishi Sunak took over, that there will just be this huge bloodletting when this
and that could go on for a long time. So as I understand it, the rules of the Labour Party are that for the meantime, a sort of temporary Labour deputy leader can be appointed by the cabinet. In reality, Keir Starmer. I'm just looking at the rules here in front of me. But then, of course, there'll be a contest for deputy leader, and if that person is outside the cabinet, well, suddenly there'll be pressure on Keir Starmer saying, give that person a cabinet position. Just outside of Labour, I want to talk about Nigel Farage, because earlier today, in fact, his speech was meant to be at 5 o'clock. He moved it forward to 1 o'clock, and Nigel Farage spoke about many things, but in particular, Angela Rayner resigning.
But you simply can't get away, can you, from being the Housing Secretary and avoiding £40,000 of council tax. And it screams to entitlement. It screams to a government that, despite all the promises that this would be a new, different kind of politics, is as bad, if not worse, than the one that went before. We've been told that right now the Prime Minister is organising a reshuffle. Yet another reset. And that the names of the new cabinet will come out later on this afternoon. Well, I didn't want the Prime Minister to do anything to spoil our conference. And that's why I've come on the stage now to say they are not fit to govern.
Nigel Farage there speaking in Birmingham. We'll be there in just a minute. For the meantime, I mean, Theo, what do you make of what Nigel Farage is saying today? He's not just criticising Angela Rayner, but he's also said something we're going to talk about in a lot more depth as the show goes on, that he can stop the boats in 2 weeks.
Yes, I mean, it's Nigel Farage was right to move the timing of the speech from 4 or 5 o'clock through to back to 1 o'clock, because it was clear that the way this had been coordinated, this reshuffle, was to take attention away from his efforts up in Birmingham to garner the Reform faithful. He says that he can deal with the boats in 2 weeks. That's a big promise, and it's very difficult to do if we remain remain signatories to the European Convention on Human Rights. In order to stop the boats in 2 weeks, you have to, as Nigel Farage promised, you would imagine, and this is from speaking to experts, which I've done over, not the last week or so, but over the course of my career, is that you have to leave the ECHR because you have to run a deportation you have to offshore your asylum process in a country, as the Tories try to do, like Rwanda, or somewhere where people know that if they cross the English Channel and they arrive at Dover, then they are going to be deported to somewhere that is not a hotel or a 4-star hotel in one of these countries, in the UK. That's what you have to do, and you can only do that, and the Tories try to do it, but you can only do it if we remove ourselves from the ECHR, and that is going to be very difficult, and I suspect it will take longer than 2 weeks. Nigel, that's not necessary to say that Nigel Farage is wrong in making the promise. I think he's recognised that the British public are at a place where they just want clear answers.
Yeah.
They want clear promises, and they want somebody who at least is going to say this needs to stop, rather than equivocating.
Okay.
Of course, there may come a point where people say, well, you're just the same as all the rest because you can't do it. But if Reform, it's realistic that if Reform win an overall majority in the House of Commons, they put it in their manifesto, so the Salisbury Convention doesn't apply to the House of Lords, so peers can't block our withdrawal from the ECHR. It can be done, although it will be quite ugly and it will be quite painful.
Okay, Theo, thank you. That's Theo Usherwood, political commentator there. We're going to go live to Birmingham on the Reform UK conference. Isabel Oakeshott is standing by. Let me do that after the break. But first of all, very, very many messages coming in. Get your call in, get your voice note in, 0344 499 1000. One person simply says, David Lammy, are you having a laugh? Vincent in North Yorkshire says, Lammy as Deputy PM, was the Downing Street cat too busy? Let's not impugn the reputation of Larry. He'd be an excellent Deputy Prime Minister, much better than David Lammy. What a joke, says Vincent. You really couldn't make this up. Great show as always, says Vincent in North Yorkshire. Neil in Labour obliterated Wales. So absolute incompetence has been replaced by absolute incompetence. The country is heading for bankruptcy, says Neil. It's just getting worse under Starmer, says Steve. Lammy as Deputy Prime Minister, God help us. Jeff says Lucy Powell should have gone months ago. A disgraceful woman. That's it, David Lammy. This will be fun to watch. One more before the break. Michelle says, Lammy as Deputy Prime Minister, I don't quite believe what I'm hearing. A nightmare. Is Starmer insane? I'm lost for words. More punishment for us. Plenty more to come on the reshuffle. We'll bring you the information as soon as we have it here at Talk Towers. We'll also go live to Birmingham. Isabel Oakeshott will talk us through everything Nigel Farage has been saying today as leader of Reform UK at their conference. Stay with us here on Talk.
Tony Blair has been talking about digital ID for a long time.
Yeah.
Talks about it with vaccine passports, talks about it with national ID cards. In fact, every issue, the solution seems to be digital ID. What it's going to mean, can you imagine the people who are coming over in boats who are throwing their passports in the sea?
Right.
The idea that digital ID is going to be the solution is just preposterous.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Thank you to Elisa in Chelmsford, who's been in touch with me and says Shabana Mahmood may have done something right as Justice Secretary, but with her support for the pro-Palestinian cause, i.e. anti-Israel marches, I'm now very worried about her becoming Home Secretary in charge of policing. And Elisa has actually sent me a picture of Shabana Mahmood holding as a younger woman, holding a sign as a younger woman, Palestine Solidarity Campaign. That's the one that runs the pro-Palestinian marches in London. Free Palestine, End Israeli Occupation. That's what Shabana Mahmood held when she was younger. We all make mistakes in our youth, but I would imagine she has much the same opinions now in regard to the Middle East. It'll be very interesting to see what she does and says and how she acts as Home Secretary. Let's just remind ourselves earlier on what Nigel Farage said about free speech at the Birmingham conference for Reform UK.
We need to make Britain proud again. We've lost our sense of who we are. We refuse to acknowledge publicly the Judeo-Christian culture and heritage that we have, and that underpins everything that we are. We refuse to have our kids' minds poisoned in schools and universities with a twisted interpretation of the history of these amazing islands. We will not stand for it. We will police the streets and not the tweets and change all of that legislation that is damaging our rights so very much.
Nigel Farage speaking earlier, and indeed earlier than planned as Reform UK leader. Well, Isabel Oakeshott, who's our international editor, is in Birmingham. Isabel, tell us what's been happening there today and what the atmosphere is like.
Well, there was something of a kerfuffle when Nigel Farage suddenly decided to bring forward his speech by several hours, and you can imagine that there was a sort of stampede from all sorts of other planned events as everybody rushed to the hall to hear what he had to say. And the reason he did that is because Reform's leadership correctly predicted that Labour Party strategists would try to drip out these new ministerial appointments just as Farage was scheduled to talk, and that is exactly what they have done. And it was a typically kind of Farage delivery, you know, very powerful, very punchy, and quite a few tangible announcements in there. The pledge to stop the boats within 2 weeks of a Reform government beginning. The announcement that he's setting up a department of preparation for power. Can't quite remember what it was called, but along those lines anyway. And various other bits and pieces that he brought out there. And I think the atmosphere here is really one of excitement. You know, the delegates here are basically itching for an election, which is the one thing that Nigel Farage can't give them anytime soon. And also watching with fascination at the decisions Keir Starmer's making as he tries to sort of put Humpty Dumpty back together again. And, you know, I would say here in the Reform Party conference, there is a feeling that the appointments that he's made are simply going to play into Reform's hands.
Yeah, it'll be very, very interesting to see what happens. The latest rumours we're hearing is that Pat McFadden may well replace Liz Kendall as Department of Work and Pensions Secretary. Liz Kendall may move to become Science Secretary. No word yet on what might happen to Peter Cardwell. What are people saying at Reform about this reshuffle? We've had some quite major moves, although in terms of people actually leaving Cabinet, only Ian Murray, the Scotland Secretary, is gone, and Lucy Powell, the Leader of the House of Commons.
I think there's a lot of interest in what's happened to David Lammy. I mean, moving him to Deputy Prime Minister, you know, political anoraks like you and I, Peter, know that that actually is a bit of a, or can be a bit of a non-job. It's all down to what you make of it and how much power the Prime Minister gives you. But Lammy is, you know, clearly not a popular figure among Reform delegates, and when they heard that, they sort of probably, a lot of them will have read that as a promotion, and they were pretty astonished by that. Moving Yvette Cooper from the Home Office, I would say that, you know, it's another great great Department of State that she's moving to, great Office of State in the Foreign Office, but it's hardly a resounding vote of confidence in her performance in terms of the single biggest and most important thing she's got to do, which is to get a grip of illegal immigration. It doesn't really sound like much of an endorsement on that to me. I'm very preoccupied, by the way, this afternoon, Peter, in trying to calculate just how much money Angela Rayner has lost this week, because she was 40 grand down before she resigned, wasn't she, this morning?
Yeah, her salary's halved as well.
40 grand.
Yeah. Now,
she's just lost a massive chunk of her salary. I wasn't aware, but it looks like she was earning over 200 grand. I wasn't aware that various ministerial allocations were able to be added together like that. But whatever way you cut it, she has lost a six-figure sum this week, since yesterday morning. That is one hell of a bad day at the office.
It certainly is for Angela Rayner. What's coming up at Reform Conference then over the next few hours, and tomorrow it's on as well?
Well, we've got Lee Anderson, who is about to take to the stage, and he's a great crowd pleaser, Lee. He's very funny, and I think that'll be a very entertaining speech. And then there's an awful lot going on this time round, for the first time actually, at a Reform conference. There are all sorts of fringe meetings taking place. Peter, it's basically like I'm at a Tory conference or a Labour conference. You know, this is, although I must say it's a lot more fun. And
it's almost as though quite a lot of those other organisations, businesses, think tanks, lots of other people who would go to conferences have actually realised that, hold on a second, Reform UK may well be the next government of this country. Maybe we should get to know them a bit.
Absolutely. So over this two-day period, there will be some 10,000 visitors to and delegates to the Reform Party conference. There's such a range of people here. I mean, including quite a few from the diplomatic community, actually. We had some meetings with ambassadors earlier. That is a real mark of how seriously the party is being taken. Now, a lot of the people here from the business community will go to all the conferences. Yeah. But it's the first time Reform has been considered big enough and important enough to be on that list.
Very interesting. Isabel, thank you. We'll check in again, I'm sure. Isabel Oakeshott there, Talks International Editor in Birmingham at the Reform UK Party conference there. We'll talk to Kate Ferguson, the political editor at The Sun on Sunday, who's been doing so much to expose what Angela Rayner has been up to or not up to in terms of paying her taxes correctly. We'll talk to Kate in just a second. We're going to get rolling coverage, of course, of the reshuffle. I can see that Downing Street at the moment, of course, they're having all sorts of changes there. We know that the latest rumours we're hearing anyway, we'll see if it actually happens. Pat McFadden, who is sort of the right-hand man of Keir Starmer at the moment, although he had his authority undercut by Darren Jones, the most patronising man in government, who managed to come in as Chief Secretary to the Prime Minister, a newly created role in coordinating all the policy delivery, all the things that Labour wants to do. Pat McFadden set to replace Liz Kendall at Work and Pensions. Of course, it has not been a resounding success. They have failed to get through their welfare reforms. Liz Kendall could well move to become Science Secretary, although the question is what happens to Peter Cardwell, who is the current Science Secretary. We've interviewed him in this programme a number of times. Lots to discuss, lots happening every few minutes, and of course we're keeping an eye on what's happening in Birmingham at Reformed Party conference. What's confirmed, sorry? Pat McFadden is confirmed now. Pat McFadden will be Secretary of State for Work and Pensions. That is confirmed. So another change in the Cabinet. We'll bring you the latest ones as they happen here on Talk.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Thank you to everybody who's been in touch. Matt Clark on Twitter says, this is the most pointless reshuffle ever, as all involved are totally hopeless, especially David, I can't see a policeman anywhere, Lammy as Justice Secretary. Someone make it stop. Yeah, do you remember that? Do you remember he said, I don't see any police around here, and there was one literally standing behind him, a policeman. Sandy says, hopefully David Lammy has brushed up on his cheese knowledge since his world tour, referring to his ill-fated attempt on Celebrity Mastermind. Ali says, look on the bright side, next time never hear Keir skips the country. We'll have the joy of watching David Lammy at Prime Minister's Question Time. And the last time he answered questions on TV, it didn't go very well, and this time he can't just say pass. Very good point. Amy says, I can't believe out of all the MPs that Starmer has, he has chosen David Lammy to be his Deputy Prime Minister. There's still other Cabinet Ministers that I'm hoping will go. Lord Hermer, Ed Miliband and Liz Kendall, to name a few. Well, we don't know about Liz Kendall just yet. We know she's out at the Department of Work and Pensions, but we think she may well become Science Secretary. We'll see what happens there. Lord Hermer, the most dangerous man in government, apparently still Attorney General. He's BFFs with Keir Starmer, so I expect he will probably stay there. We'll get the expert view of Kate Ferguson in just a second, but just before we do, I just want to apologise because we have a bit of a problem with our clips at the moment. When we play clips, they can be a bit echoey, whether you're watching or listening. A number of people have contacted me online for that. We're trying to get that sorted out. We've got our tech people behind the scenes. I'm not going to play any clips between now and 5 o'clock. Hopefully by 5 o'clock, when we take a look back at what various people are saying, including Nigel Farage at Reform UK Conference, we can get that nice and clear and there's no echo on it. So we're on the case, but thank you to everybody who's been in touch. Right then, let's go to Kate Ferguson, who's political editor of The Sun on Sunday. Kate, thank you for joining me today, and may I say congratulations on your excellent journalism that has led to the point we're at today, which is the Deputy Prime Minister resigning, and indeed a reshuffle, to say nothing of a very exciting Reform UK conference that you're at there. What are your reflections on the last 24 hours or so, Kate?
Yeah, I mean, it's been a whirlwind 24 hours. I came and got the train here to Reform Conference yesterday. You know, Nigel Farage floating around behind me somewhere, very much the man of tomorrow. But meanwhile, today, the news is happening back in London in Downing Street with that big reshuffle. Woke up this morning with expectation that Angela Rayner would quit as Deputy PM, and quit she did after those revelations that she had underpaid her stamp duty tax by £40,000. After that, we started to hear news that there would be a reshuffle, and not just any reshuffle, we were told, quite a big sweeping reshuffle. Expect the big beasts to all change seats. That's everyone apart from Rachel Reeves as the Chancellor, and that's what we're seeing playing out today. You know, bit by bit, drip feed by drip feed, we're hearing names. David Lammy, the new Deputy PM. Now, they would have had to give him a big job like that to prize him out of the Foreign Office. You know, no one wants to give up the Foreign Secretary beat, so they've obviously lured him over with that nice plum job title. Yvette Cooper over to Foreign Secretary. A very, very experienced politician, a safe pair of hands. And Shabana Mahmood, very much the woman of the moment, one of Labour's most talented rising stars over at Home Office as the new Home Secretary. Well, we all really wish her well, because that's going to be the big challenge of this government. Can she stop the boats and do what no Home Secretary has managed to do before her?
It's a very big in-tray for Shabana Mahmood. It's also not exactly a ringing endorsement of how Yvette Cooper has acted as Home Secretary in the last year or so. I wonder as well, we're already getting a number of people in touch here at Talk about Shabana Mahmood's support for the Palestinian cause, especially when it comes to the Home Office, when it comes to dealing with policing and policing those pro-Palestinian protests as well. That's a big one for her as well, isn't it?
Yes, I mean, that is a very big topic. We'll see how hard she comes down on them. But I think, you know, look, I am a journalist, and I think Shabana Mahmood is a very talented politician. So I think that is a good move for Keir and a good move for her. She talks very directly. She's quite no-nonsense in how she says things. And I think in a world in which really Labour need to be taking on the arguments of Nigel Farage and the Reform Party, that party that's having their conference behind me, you need that kind of bullish, straight talker to take them on. But what Labour need, as well as that, is a policy to really get to grips with stopping the boats. We'll see if we start fleshing that out in the coming weeks, but that will be what stops the boats. But I think she's there to deliver much punchier, much harder line messaging and rhetoric. I
want to talk to you about the Reform Conference in Birmingham in just a second, but just before I do, can you just give me your reflections on the fact that Pat McFadden is to take over a new super ministry, including the Department for Work and Pensions and the skills remit of the Department of Education, apparently? Yeah, Pat McFadden. Now, this is a kind of quiet man of politics, but hugely influential and powerful behind the scenes. Very close to Keir, very close to Morgan McSweeney, a big, big beast of cabinet. Now, he's moved out of that cabinet office role into this big, new, beefed-up super ministry, we're calling it. That's DWP and skills. Expect them to grasp the thorny nettle of welfare reform again, I think. And the focus is really meant to be on economic growth. What does that mean? That means getting people off the benefits back into work. That is a tricky, tricky policy area to pursue, but this is a big vote in confidence in Pat McFadden and his team, that if you really want someone to get in there, you know, really tinker, really grasp the nettle of this big policy issue, you're sending in Pat. So I think that'll be quite exciting to watch. Tell us your reflections on Reform UK as well. Many big announcements from Nigel Farage today, saying he could stop the boats in 2 weeks. He brought his big conference speech forward, of course, to just about an hour after Angela Rayner resigned as Deputy Prime Minister. It must have had an electrifying effect on people there in Birmingham, I would imagine. Yeah, I mean, this is Reform's first big party conference, but it really is a bit more of a kind of, you know, Trump-esque kind of arena tour kind of feel to it. All the members here, all the supporters are on cloud nine, skipping along, jubilant, buying their Reform T-shirts.
Nigel Farage is a man who knows how to make headlines and likes making headlines. So you see him kind of pulling that speech forward so that he can muscle in on today and not let the news all be dragged to the Labour Party and that cabinet reshuffle. So yeah, some big policies coming out of the reform. I mean, look, they're miles ahead in the polls. I was speaking to one pollster earlier who's saying Reform are polling with every key kind of I think they call them hero voters, those big kind of key voters that swing elections. When they get polled, every single one of them seems to be going Reform. So that Stevenage woman, that Mondeo man, all those types of voters we've heard about in the past, Reform are polling the best with all of them. So yes, you know, the Labour government really overhauling itself back in number 10 to see if they can get ahead and kind of catch up with Nigel Farage in the polls, but it's Nigel who seems to, at the moment, he's destined for number 10.
Kate, get yourself a nice glass of wine tonight. I think you deserve it after your journalism in the last couple of weeks. Well done, and thank you for your analysis. That's Kate Ferguson there, political editor of The Sun on Sunday Live in Birmingham. Thank you to the person who says, hi Peter, the reshuffle will be a gift for Reform UK. That's Christina there. Andy in Aberdeenshire says, David Lammy is Deputy Prime Minister. If Starmer isn't going to take his job seriously, then how does he expect us to believe in him? Good riddance to Lucy Powell. I can't believe she wasn't sacked after her asked any questions. Behaviour. Love the show, Peter, and thank you, Andy, for that. I appreciate that. Very kind of you. Joan is in Sunderland and has given me a ring on 0344 499 1000. Joan, you've given us a ring about David Lammy. What would you like to say?
I'm not often speechless, but I'm nearly struck dumb by that appointment. The man is a joke. I don't know whether Starmer's moved him, for the simple reason that man liked to give everything away, provided it didn't belong to him.
Well, the Chagos Islands under his watch as Foreign Secretary, certainly. Now he's Justice Secretary. Do you fear for the state of our prisons, Joan?
I feel for the state of everything with him. I'm surprised that Buckingham Palace and Windsor Castle hasn't been sold before now.
Well,
the man's an idiot.
He's only on day one, Joan. Listen, thanks for your reaction. I appreciate that. That's Joan in Sunderland. We'll take many more calls between now and 7. Usually we'd have calls on before 4:45, but so much is happening at the moment. We're keeping a very, very close eye on Downing Street and what's happening there. And, of course, Birmingham, where Reform UK conference is occurring too. We're going to talk to a Labour councillor and commentator, Sebastian Salek. He is coming up next. Let me know your thoughts on everything that's happening today. 0344 499 1000. Stay with us.
looking very difficult for her. I mean, she's a first-class hypocrite.
Yeah.
She spent years and years attacking Tories over tax, over second homes. It's just the sheer hypocrisy of these people, you know. Ever since they've gone into government, it's been one scandal after another, you know, accepting freebies, you know, matters of, you know, private jets. Well, she should have resigned already.
Yeah.
She should have resigned already.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Well, thank you to everyone who has been in touch, including Jane, who says, I wonder when the next reshuffle will be. Bet some of these ministers won't last long either. Well, we know that Steve Reid is now the Housing Secretary. He was the Environment Secretary. They all just seem to be kind of moving around. Pat McFadden, appointed Secretary of State for Work and Pensions. Sebastian Salek is Labour councillor and commentator, is with me now. Sebastian, it was absolutely right that Angela Rayner went, wasn't it?
Yeah, definitely. I think she'd acknowledge that herself. We have to make a difference here between malicious actions and people who deliberately try to mislead and those who make innocent mistakes. I think this was the latter.
You think it was an innocent mistake? You think it was an innocent mistake?
Excuse, and as a result, she resigned, and that was the right thing to do.
You think it was an innocent mistake?
It seems so, yeah. There's nothing to me that suggests that this is malicious or trying to take anyone down.
So she just screwed up.
I think she did screw up. I mean, if you've ever bought or sold a house, it's not a simple procedure. It requires an understanding of laws that most of us don't have a grasp of, and it's very easy.
No, it doesn't. I've bought a house, and what happens is that your conveyancer sends you information and says, we are not tax lawyers, you need to consult tax lawyers. I did that when I bought my flat. I'm sure a lot of other people did as well. She didn't do that, so that was her mistake. I just wonder what you think of this reshuffle, because are you happy, for example, that Shabana Mahmood is the Home Secretary when she's previously been on a pro-Palestinian demonstration?
Yeah, I mean, I think Shabana Mahmood as a formidable politician is going to be a brilliant opportunity to see her shine in a really important brief. I'm particularly encouraged that she's been so outspoken about Article 8 of ECHR and the need to have a real debate there about whether that is really working and functioning as intended. So look forward to seeing her get into role and take on a very challenging area of government, solving one of the hardest problems that I think any government has had to solve in recent years.
It's not exactly a ringing endorsement of Yvette Cooper. Yvette Cooper is someone who is one of the most experienced MPs in Parliament, one of the most experienced ministers. She was Work and Pensions Secretary under, I think it was Tony Blair or Gordon Brown. I think Tony Blair, actually. So, I mean, if someone of her experience can't get to grips with it, why are you so confident Shabana Mahmood can?
Well, I think she has got to grips with it, and we've talked about this before. A lot of the numbers... Sorry,
hold on. Sorry, you think Yvette Cooper got to grips with immigration?
Well, if you look at it through the prism of getting down the asylum backlog or increasing enforced deportations or bringing down the hotel bill, those are all going in the right direction. So there was a lot of positive progress.
You think immigration, you think Yvette Cooper got it, you think immigration was got a grip on under Yvette Cooper's time? Well, if that was the case, why didn't he keep her as Home Secretary? And I think a lot of people would question your judgment on that, Sebastian.
I don't know why she wasn't kept as Home Secretary. I sadly don't have any special insight on that one. I'm pleased to see her going from one office of state to another. So there's clearly not a demotion here. And I look forward to seeing what she gets on within
the Foreign Office is really much less important than the Home Office.
Especially now,
the Foreign Office is much less important than the Home Office.
Pensions, there was a lot to be solved there.
The Foreign Office is a lot less important than the Home Office. It is a demotion, even though it's a great office of state. I mean, I don't
question that.
Well, I think you're wrong. In fact,
you're very welcome to think I'm wrong. I also think you're wrong.
Okay, well, you're entitled to your opinion and you're entitled to be wrong. Tell us about how you think Yvette Cooper has got to grips with immigration, because what we see are hundreds of people coming over on small boats. We see Labour has only actually forcibly deported about 4,500 people, and we see that when they're told by a court to close a hotel, they don't do it.
Yeah, so if we want to talk about enforced removals, deportations essentially, the number from March 2025 this year for the last year is more than 8,000, and it's up. I can't quite remember how much, but a significant figure on the previous year. So that is an improvement. The asylum backlog has come down significantly. That's very important if you want to make sure that you are processing those applications and getting through them, and crucially getting people out of hotels and other forms of accommodation, which I know many...
There's still over 200 hotels open though, Sebastian.
Yeah, you're quite right about that, and that's why the government has pledged to get that down to 0 by the end of this term. So
yeah, when they're told to close one of them,
all of these numbers are moving in the right direction. Well, it's very easy to be negative about this.
Well,
but
they're not moving in the right direction.
Any balanced commentator would acknowledge the good as well as the bad.
They're not moving in the right direction in the fact that there are 200 hotels still open.
I'm telling you that these numbers are going.
If you'll just listen to me, Sebastian, if you'll just listen to my question, they're not going. They're not going in the right direction if there are 200 hotels still open, and when the court tells them to close one of them, it says no. How confident are you that all of them will be closed by 2029?
Well, again, I don't have any particular levels of foresight or clairvoyance, but I'm pleased to see the cost, at least, of those hotels is coming down. That's down by 30%, which is brilliant news for anybody who's a taxpayer in this country. The way to close those hotels is in a managed way. So the court ruling that we saw, and this is all in the past now, at least for now, was unhelpful because it would have forced the government to make very quick decisions. That's no way to solve this issue. You have to be able to be thoughtful and to plan ahead. As you know, you were a special advisor in government, and I'm sure you didn't make any rash or quick decisions you hadn't properly thought through. You prefer to be cogent and to be considerate and to make decisions that you had really given a lot of thought to.
We'll see what the court's say in about 6 weeks' time when this comes up. Again, there's some reports that Miliband should be sacked. What do you make of that speculation? It's all speculation at the moment, apart from what we do know, of course. Steve Reid, Housing Secretary, Pat McFadden, Work and Pensions, but a question mark over Ed Miliband, Sebastian.
That's a new one on me. I hadn't seen that. I've been really encouraged by how outspoken and how passionate, frankly, Ed Miliband has been on the net zero brief. He's someone who really clearly cares about that area.
He certainly cares about it, but bills have gone up, and he said they wouldn't. Bills have gone up. He said they'd be down by £300.
Yeah, you're right. And there's a parallel here, I think, with the migrant crisis, in that the climate crisis certainly isn't going to be fixed overnight either. And there may well be that there is some short-term pain in exchange for long-term gain.
But if people voted for Labour because of what Ed Miliband said, that bills would come down by £300 because of net zero, and they find their bills going up, I mean, that's straightforwardly wrong, isn't it?
Well, I don't think anybody said that bills were going to come down immediately.
Did. Well, he said they come down by £300.
He said immediately.
Well, he said they come down and they didn't.
Yeah, but we're still existing in space and time. There is still time for those bills to come down. He didn't give a time frame. He didn't say that it was going to come down in, 14 months.
We're still existing in space and time. I'm really glad that's happening, Sebastian, because I was worried it wasn't happening, especially when David Lammy has been appointed Deputy Prime Minister. What do you make of that?
Well, do you know what? There's an interesting parallel between David Lammy and Angela Rayner, in that they're both people who were born in extremely difficult circumstances and beat the odds to where they got to today. And I'm really pleased to see somebody who is a very credible operator, who's been a politician for a very long time, and was a lawyer and a Harvard graduate before that, serving in this role. He is a man with a lot of experience, and I look forward to seeing him continue to deliver for us.
You believe he's a credible operator, yet when he was on Celebrity Mastermind, he was asked which French cheese was the start of the question, and he answered it Red Leicester. That's a credible person, is it?
Sorry, what was that?
He was on Celebrity Mastermind. He was asked a question which started which French cheese, to which he answered Red Leicester. Have you not seen him on Celebrity Mastermind? It's brilliant. It's a classic.
No, I haven't.
You've got to watch it, Sebastian. You've got to watch it.
Competence of our senior politicians, but
you've seen the clip. Sure. Well, you've seen the clip of him saying, "I haven't seen any police people around here," and there's a policeman standing behind him. I mean, he's a figure of fun for many people.
I mean, yeah, like you can find any politician, and there will be something they've said that is silly. To extrapolate from that and to say, therefore, they are incapable of serving in this role. I think you're really grasping at that point.
Well, let's take a big and definitely serious issue. The Scours Islands have been given away. We're going to spend billions of pounds on that. That happened under Lammy's watch. Does that qualify him to be Deputy Prime Minister of this country?
I don't think those two things are really related, but we can get into
They
the
are
Scours
related.
Islands
I'm
if you
talking
want.
about, they are related because I'm talking about his time as Foreign Secretary. I'm talking about his competence. You called him a credible operator. He's given away the Scours Islands. How does that qualify him to be Deputy Prime Minister for a promotion to the one of the most powerful people in the land after being Foreign Secretary, another very powerful role?
Yeah, I mean, again, I don't see the direct link, but if we're going to talk about
We're talking about his competence, Sebastian.
Sorry?
We're talking about his competence and his record.
Yeah, so I mean, the Scours deal was pretty much signed, was pretty much put together by the Tories. It was one of those things that Labour inherited very early on.
They didn't have to do it. They didn't have to do it.
No, they didn't, but they did it for the right reasons. The international law dictated that Scours was not part of Britain and should be returned. The problem is,
there was a suggestion. It's not that's not quite right. There was a suggestion that there could be problems down the line. What benefit to Britain did David Lammy give us by giving away the Scours Islands, do you think?
Yeah, so I mean, the issue is that if you start to ignore that guidance, there were more judgments coming down the line, and this was the calculation made by those who were working on this. And the problem is, if you ignore the law to put your stature as a country into question, I certainly wouldn't want to see Britain be a country that is not trusted.
So what benefit did we get at the end of it, apart from the fact that what benefit did we get at the end of it, apart from the fact we gave loads of money away on territory?
Yeah, so it's one of those things where it's just about taking the right steps and doing the right thing.
So no
the
benefit.
reality was, if you, it wasn't something that was done for a clear benefit. It's done because it's the right thing to do. In the same way as if you give somebody back their wallet that you found, there's no benefit to you from that, but you're doing the right thing by giving someone something back that is theirs.
All right, we've got to go to the news. Thank you, Sebastian Selleck, their Labour councillor and commentator. Let me know what you think of what he said. 0344 499 1000.
across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Good evening, this is Talk Drive. I'm Peter Cardwell. It's just gone 5 o'clock. The Cabinet is being reshuffled. Nigel Farage has been speaking at Reform UK conference in Birmingham, where we're going live in just a minute. There are loads of changes to the Cabinet here in London as well. Steve Reid is now the Housing Secretary. Pat McFadden's got a super ministry, Department of Work and Pensions and Skills as well. There are lots of other people. We know as well that Angela Rayner is out and Steve Reid is in at Housing. David Lammy is the Deputy Prime Minister now, filling the boots that were vacated by Angela Rayner. And in regard to Home Secretary, Yvette Cooper has gone to Foreign. Shabana Mahmood is in there. These are some of the very big changes that are happening in Parliament today. We'll be live in Birmingham in a second as well to get reaction to the news of David Lammy being Deputy Prime Minister. Loads of reaction as well to Sebastian, I was just speaking to a second ago there. Cliff in Berkshire says, I like your new feature, the comedy cabaret. Sebastian was so funny, he made me sides ache from all the laughter he forced me to do. And Jason in the Lake District has a very good question. Is this now phase 3 of the government? Well, we'll answer that question together. I want you to give me a ring. I'll get as many calls as I can on between now and 7. In between all the news that's happening as we're on air, the Cabinet reshuffle is happening right now. 0344 499 1000. That's the number to call to get your voice and your view on the air. You can text me 87222 with the word talk in your text. You can tweet me at talkTV. Follow me at Peter Cardwell. You can send me a WhatsApp voice note. You can send me a WhatsApp text message or give me a ring on 0344 499 1000. Love to hear the voice notes. Just keep them to less than a minute, please. Otherwise, Tech Up Dave becomes Tetchy Up Dave. Lots to discuss here on Talk. Stay with us. Well, Reform UK's conference is on in Birmingham. Let's remind ourselves of what Nigel Farage said about Angela Rayner's resignation a little bit earlier on. He actually brought his speech forward. It was meant to be right now, but it was in fact at 1 o'clock. We brought that to you live, of course, here on Talk. In that speech, this is what he said about Angela Rayner.
But you simply can't get away, can you, from being the Housing Secretary and avoiding £40,000 of council tax, and it screams to entitlement. It screams to a government that, despite all the promises that this would be a new, different kind of politics, is as bad, if not worse, than the one that went before. We've been told that right now the Prime Minister is organising a reshuffle, yet another reset, and that the names of the new cabinet will come out later on this afternoon. Well, I didn't want the Prime Minister to do anything to spoil our conference, and that's why I've come on the stage now to say they are not fit to govern.
Nigel Farage there. Well, just as we were playing that clip there, and we've got the clip situation sorted out. A number of people in touch. We had a few problems earlier. All fine now, I think, but do let me know if you've any issue listening to them. Nigel Farage, of course, will reflect on what he's been saying by going to Birmingham in just a second, but just let you know, Shabana Mahmood has gone into Downing Street. I'm watching a monitor in front of my screen, and she's gone into 10 Downing Street. She's been appointed Home Secretary. Let's go to Noah Hoffman. She's political correspondent at The Sun. Noah is in Birmingham at Reform UK Party Conference. Let's talk about Nigel Farage first, Noah. A barnstorming speech. He says he's going to stop the boats in 2 weeks. What's been the reception to all of that, Noah?
The reception's been very positive. The crowd here are really enthused, they're really excited. There's a lot of pride amongst the people here that they're Reform members and they're here to meet their sort of rock star hero in Nigel Farage. And it is interesting that this sort of momentum and this enthusiasm, if anything, has only built up off the back of the chaos and drama in Downing Street rather than sort of being distracted by it. So yes, a lot of the reporters here were very much having one eye on number 10 as the speech went on, but it was still nonetheless very invigorating, particularly for the crowd here.
And reaction there, of course, to what's happening in London at Downing Street. Shabana Mahmood has just gone into 10 Downing Street. Big changes there. What's your reaction to that, Noah?
So I do think, in fairness to Keir Starmer, that is a good move. Shabana Mahmood is much more hardline on issues of law and order than Yvette Cooper, and then frankly, most Labour MPs. She's also got a much better grasp of the law and how it can be sort of manoeuvred around to help with the small boats crisis, something we've seen really just epically fail until now. So the movement of Shabana to Home Secretary, which really is kind of what this whole reshuffle is all about, is a message from the Prime Minister that he does want to get serious about stopping the boats. Now, it's up to your listeners whether they believe him, but I do think that that is the motive behind this move. Morgan McSweeney privately is so desperate to close these asylum hotels.
That's the Chief of Staff at Downing Street there. Yeah. I just wonder.
The Chief of Staff at Downing Street, that's right.
I just wonder with Yvette Cooper, Noah, I mean, it's not exactly a ringing endorsement of how she's got on over the last 14 months.
I mean, the two of us, Peter, and all your listeners will know that Yvette Cooper's tenure in the Home Office has been marked by nothing but failure. Small boat numbers are up. Immigration is not significantly enough down. And we all knew this, but this is the first real admission from Number 10 that this is the case. So instead of everyone thinking, gosh, we're kicking and screaming, saying Yvette Cooper is not doing enough to stop the boats, Number 10, after months and months and months, is finally saying, okay, we agree with you. We're going to move a more hardliner in, not by, general standards, but by Labour standards at least. And we think she's got a better shot at doing something about this absolute scandal.
Shabana Mahmood, certainly an impressive character in some ways. I've had quite a number of Jewish people getting in touch with me. We cover anti-Semitism a lot on this station. She is someone who has marched on a Palestine Solidarity Committee march in the past. She has strong views in the Middle East. There are concerns, of course, Noah, that she'll be able to direct the police in an impartial way when her views on the Middle East, for example, and the strong views that many people have in this country are known and very clear. What's your thought on that?
Oh, that's a good question, Peter. So I do think that that is definitely a valid issue for a lot of people, and I think she will really have to prove through her actions that she wants to move away from examples of two-tier policing that we've seen recently with regard to Palestine marches versus, say, protests outside asylum hotels. So I think she should be given the space and a chance to prove that her sort of sympathies towards Palestine movements do not impact her impartiality when it comes to policing. But of course the jury's out on that, and there are definitely valid concerns. I do think overall though that she is someone who could be given a chance. She was very, very vocal on issues of anti-Semitism in the sort of aftermath of Corbyn's leadership, and when Keir Starmer was trying to rebuild the party away from that horrid, hard lefty anti-Semitic vibe. She was very much a part of that effort, but it is a valid concern about her sort of sympathies and how that will impact policing of these Palestine protests that have really turned very ugly in a lot of ways for a lot of people. So the jury's out.
Noah, just briefly, your reaction to Peter Cardwell has been appointed the new business secretary. We don't know what's happening with Jonathan Reynolds. Maybe he'll go back to his career as a solicitor. Oh yes, he lied about that, that's right. But Peter Cardwell has become business secretary. What do you make of that?
Okay, so you're actually the first person to break that to me, so thank you. That must have happened.
We've shared a beautiful moment, Noah. We've shared a beautiful moment.
Oh, yes. Good move. Good move. He is a good media performer. He is, intelligent, knowledgeable in this industry. He's been doing quite well, some would say, in the tech brief in terms of really trying to speed up the integration of AI into government and across British society and spearhead AI as, the future and a key player in this sort of mission for growth. So Jonathan Reynolds, business hate him, frankly, right now, because of the way they've been clobbered, admittedly also in tandem with Rachel Reeves by these national insurance hikes, endless tax, and, not a quick enough effort to strip business of the red tape that they have to suffer through to get anything done. So I think Peter Cardwell is a step in the right direction, but it's so early days in terms of being able to tell whether they will match up their previous rhetoric with actions. But I think overall a good appointment.
Thank you, Noah. That's Noah Hoffman there, political correspondent of The Sun, who is in Birmingham at Reform UK Party Conference. Peter Kyle, the new business secretary, will find out what happens to Jonathan Reynolds. Matthew Laza joins me now. He's the former Labour Party advisor. Matthew, David Lammy as Deputy Prime Minister, are they having a laugh?
No, I think he'll be a very good Deputy Prime Minister. And I I'm really impressed with the reshuffle so far. I think this is bigger and more focused than any reshuffle we'd have had, even if it had been delayed by a few months.
It's not exactly a ringing endorsement of Yvette Cooper at the Home Office that they've moved her to the Foreign Office. That is not a promotion. At very best, it's a sideways move or even a demotion. They've brought in Shabana Mahmood, who is clearly a strong character. But if your number one thing that you're doing is attempting to sort immigration, after 14 months moving the person who's doing that isn't a ringing endorsement of how well she's done.
Well, look, I mean, I slightly disagree that Foreign Secretary is in any way a demotion. I think actually, technically, it is a slight.
Well, it's higher
office of state.
I've had this argument with a number of people. The Foreign Office is much smaller and much less powerful than the Home Office. The Prime Minister does an awful lot of the foreign affairs stuff, and the Foreign Secretary does much less. The main achievement, I use the term loosely, that David Lammy had as Foreign Secretary was giving away the Chagos Islands, and that didn't bring any benefits whatsoever to Britain.
No, I don't think that's the main achievement of David Lammy.
What was his main achievement?
Well, actually, I think establishing a good relationship with the tricky US administration has been one of them. In fact, some people might say
after he screwed it up by calling Donald Trump a neo-Nazi sympathising sociopath.
He did that some considerable time before,
yeah, he still did it. If someone called me a neo-Nazi sympathising sociopath, I'd remember it, Matthew.
Well, I'm not. I have to say, I think a lot of people in America have called the Trump administration that. So I'm not sure.
So that's okay then if the Foreign Secretary does it.
Well, look, I think he did a good job as Foreign Secretary. He's now our Deputy Prime Minister. I think Yvette will be a very effective Foreign Secretary in his place. Look, on Shabana, I think that Shabana has done a really good job at Justice, and I think that they want to use the skills that she's developed at Justice and the approach that she's bringing on the small boats issue and on the wider migration issue, because the Home Office still needs a lot of work. Nobody would say Yvette had sorted the Home Office in 14 months. Frankly, nobody has sorted the Home Office entirely in 25 odd years. And I think he wants to bring the energy that she brought to things like telling the Sentencing Council, who are trying to introduce.
Yeah, that was correct. That was correct.
And which have won plaudits across the aisle.
Well, she won plaudits for me. I was standing up for a Labour cabinet minister on a number of occasions for doing that, and that takes a heck of a lot to happen. And this has all happened, of course, because Angela Rayner has had to resign. She's been dragged kicking and screaming from her role as Deputy Prime Minister because she's too incompetent to have a tax lawyer and to know how many homes she had. This is Keir Starmer weak. This is someone not acting from a position of strength. On Monday, he said that phase 2 was happening. Are we in phase 3 now? I mean, this week has been a write-off for Labour, hasn't it, Matthew?
Well, clearly, the last 5 days are ones that the Labour Party would like not to have gone through. I think, everybody in the Labour Party wishes that Angela had taken yet further advice from a tax lawyer and worked out the position, because actually I think Angela has a lot to offer British public life. I hope she comes back into government in some role in the future. I don't think it shows the Prime Minister is weak today. I think actually, effectively, this is the restart.
He's been forced into it. He is weak. Yeah, he's lost his Deputy Prime Minister. That is a sign of weakness. You can't keep people.
He hasn't lost his Deputy Prime Minister, but Peter, he hasn't lost his Deputy Prime Minister through anything that he's done. What he did is she referred herself to his independent.
I know what happened, Matthew, and our viewers and listeners know. Peter, he's not stronger today than he was a week ago. You're not honestly telling me that he's stronger today than he was a week ago.
I actually think in some ways he is stronger than he was a week
ago. Matthew, you're living in
cloud
cuckoo land.
Peter, let me finish, please, because he's got a cabinet that is more in the mould that he would want.
It's the same people. They're just in different roles. It's the same people.
It's not the same people, because we've already seen a couple of people exit cabinet. I suspect that my old boss, Ed Miliband, won't be the energy secretary by the end of the day. I think you will see a much more sort of diplomatic figure in that role, who blends the need to move towards net zero with the need to keep energy prices down and to keep people in. So I think you might see something like Douglas Alexander.
But so far, listen, they've got rid of Lucy Powell, who says talking about grooming gangs is dog whistle politics. They've got rid of Ian Murray, who I can't think of a single thing he did as Scottish Secretary apart from slag off Larry the cat by calling him a little S word, and Larry's still there and he isn't. But the point is that Keir Starmer hasn't brought anybody new in. There's no new blood here. It's all the old same faces. They're just being shuffled around departments. How does that put him in a stronger position?
Well, we don't know that, because we suspect that there.
Yeah, but you're saying he's in a stronger position now. He's not in a stronger position now. He's in a weaker position now.
We don't know what the full extent of the reshuffle
is.
But
you said a minute ago he's in a stronger position right now than he was a week ago.
He is, because I think he's putting round pegs in round holes.
Why didn't he do that 14 months ago?
Well, you also have to see you have to see how people get on, and obviously it's like any job. When people are appointed to the job, sometimes you have high hopes.
Well, how do you know they're round pegs and round? Well, if you've got to see how people have got on, how do you know they're round pegs and round holes now?
Because actually, one of the reasons you know that is because they're people who you've seen perform in cabinet, but you think have done well in one particular role, and you think bring a particular set of skills to a new role. So take Peter Cardwell, who, as Noah was just saying, has won a lot of plaudits for his relationship with business as the tech secretary. He's now moving to the larger job of business secretary because he's been seen to build a good relationship with business. So that's exactly what I'm saying. In the first year of the government, he showed that this was his thing. He did a good job. He was delivering on priorities. You moved into a bigger job in the same area. So that is literally an example of moving somebody who you think has performed around the cabinet table into a new job.
Thank you very much indeed. That's Matthew Laza there, former Labour advisor. Thank you to the viewer Julia Hartley-Brewer, who has just sent me a brilliant thing from Twitter, which was Henry Zeffman, the BBC's chief political correspondent, saying, for the first time ever, the holders of the three great offices of state beyond Prime Minister, Chancellor, Foreign Secretary and Home Secretary are all women. And someone called Stephen Locke has replied and says, as have been the four ministers who've all had to resign on integrity grounds. We'll find out what Jeremy Kyle in Birmingham and Mike Graham think of all this in just a second. Stay with us.
It's looking very difficult for her. I mean, she's a first-class hypocrite.
Yeah.
She spent years and years attacking Tories over tax, over second homes. It's just the sheer hypocrisy of these people, you know. Ever since they've gone into government, it's been one scandal after another. you know, accepting freebies, you know, matters of, you know, private jets. Well, she should have resigned already.
Yeah.
She should have resigned already.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Well, we've got the full list now of what is all these different changes since the break. We know, of course, Peter Cardwell is now Business Secretary. Emma Reynolds is now Environment Secretary. Douglas Alexander, Secretary of State for Scotland. He had that job literally 20 years ago. He was Secretary of State for Scotland under Tony Blair, and he is there. Jonathan Reynolds has become the Chief Whip, and Alan Campbell, Sir Alan Campbell, is the Leader of the House of Commons. We know, of course, Angela Rayner's resigned. Lucy Powell, MP, she's gone, and Ian Murray's gone as well. Ian Murray was the Scottish Secretary. Lucy Powell was the Leader of the House of Commons as well. So thank you very much indeed. I've just been handed a piece of paper with some more info here, and yeah, I mean, the big one is David Lammy, of course, as Secretary of State for Justice and Deputy Prime Minister. Tad's been in touch and says, I can unusually fall back on the words of Theresa May, nothing has changed, nothing has changed. In fact, this is already looking much worse than stage one. Lammy is quite simply out of his depth. Well, let's go live now to Jeremy Kyle, my co-presenter, of course. He is in Birmingham at the Reform UK conference. Jeremy, tell us what's been happening there.
Mate, this is a bit weird, isn't it? All those years ago, you would be standing at a political conference and I'd be in the studio. How are you? What a day! It's been bizarre.
I feel like Yvette Cooper. You know, I feel like Yvette Cooper. I've been moved in my role. I'm here, you're there. You know, you're the Shabana Mahmood of the situation.
Let me tell you something. Come here. I've got Peter Cardwell.
Who have you got?
Close protection security. Look.
Wow.
How about that?
Goodness me, is he behaving himself?
Anyway. Interesting day. I think when we woke up this morning, a lot of the journalists last night were saying we're heading back to London because of Angela Rayner. Have you held a moment's silence for our Ange? Are people devastated who listened to talk that a woman who lived by the sword had to die by the sword? Goodbye, love. I'm only interested in one thing. When she left Downing Street in the ministerial car, did she go to Hove or Manchester, Peter Cardwell? Where did she go?
Well, maybe she got her BFH, a bus fare home. You never know with Angela. Certainly she's gone to the back benches. She has lost her jobs, and she's lost a lot of money as well, actually. The reaction, I would imagine, in Birmingham has been jubilant, I would imagine.
Well, it was interesting because, of course, the whole day was lined up. Nigel Farage was going to do his speech at about 4 o'clock this afternoon. A decision was made when it became readily apparent that the letters had already been exchanged and Rayner was on the way, that he would bring his speech forward. So everybody was caught a bit short, so he was on air, I think, on stage between 1:15 and 2. He brought Nadine Dorries out. An astonishing atmosphere, I have to say here. Thousands of people that really seem to feel a vibe and a moment, and there's real energy in the hall. Honestly, I'm like Challenge Annika without a yellow suit. I've been walking around, I've been on buses, I've been in burger vans, I've been outside, I've been absolutely everywhere. But overall, on a serious note, there's a real feeling, I think, that the reform, I mean, when Nigel Farage was speaking earlier, and I spent some time with him today, he said this government could fall. It could fall if they go cap in hand to the IMF because we're skint. It could fall because, I mean, you wonder about Rayner, you wonder about that horrible woman Lucy Powell, you wonder about them on the back benches. We know how vulnerable Keir Starmer is, and I heard your last part where they were saying, you know, it's a reset. It's not a reset, it's shifting around of the same people into different roles. The guy who lied about being a solicitor is now the chief whip. Why would anybody listen to him? And if David Lammy can be the deputy prime minister when he can't even buy a fishing rod licence when he goes fishing, I would put, and he's the Justice Secretary, he'll have to jail himself, Pete. Jail himself.
It's a very good point. I mean, much reaction there, I'm sure, to what Nigel Farage has been saying about stopping the boats within 2 weeks. That's a very bold claim. How's it gone down in Birmingham?
Well, of course, it's gone down with the faithful of reform in a very positive way. But I think the one thing that I've taken from it today is, and we talk about this on the show and talk a lot and across the day, is that the British people, I think, have reached a moment where they're not interested in squeaky clean politicians who don't turn out to be squeaky clean, who make promises and only respond when they've had it written down by a focus group. This is a man who's obviously done it for a long, long time. Love him or hate him. And there was an article over the weekend, Peter, that made me laugh when Farage said, they'll come for me now. We got 35%. They'll come for me now. They'll accuse me of being, you know, a drinker, a gambler, a womanizer, and I smoke. And he went, so I have. That doesn't make me a bad politician. I think the British people, led by the people in this auditorium, are thinking to themselves, right, listen, we've seen the Tories, we've seen Labour, we've seen mistakes and failure and resignations and all that. Why wouldn't we consider people who perhaps have been successful in business? Yeah, of course they talk all the language. We can sit there and go, would he be able to destroy the blob? Would he be able to do all of those things? There's a real energy in the building. It was interesting to speak to people from Epping. It was interesting to speak to people. I interviewed a policeman who was injured after 20 years service and is in a wheelchair, and he's fighting for reform because he believes the police have been neutered by this government.
And that's a big issue.
A cross-section of age as well is a real thing, young to old. There really has been a massive sort of different series of ages on show today. But yeah, it's an interesting.
I'm really interested.
Can't find Mike Graham anywhere.
I'm really interested. You mentioned Nigel Farage and the fact that he is a genuine person, and many people feel that he connects. And that was the problem with Angela Rayner, wasn't it? She presented herself. She said, "Look, I'm a working class mum, and I just am who I am, and I don't talk properly. I talk proper," and that's the way she was. But then, of course, when you become the Deputy Prime Minister, when you have an income of 200 grand plus, when you have 3 homes, and then you fail to play by the rules that everybody else is playing by, well, that creates a huge problem, doesn't it, Jeremy?
Of course, and you know, when the Tories rightly fell, I think all of us who were proud of being British were hoping that this government would do what was right and go, do you know what? It is about working people. You would have to say a year in. I mean, bloody hell, phase 2 was Monday.
Yeah.
It's
Are we
Friday,
in phase 3?
and we're on to phase 3. And the truth is about Nigel Farage, and he might well be the next Prime Minister. He might not. Obviously, here at Reform, everybody believes that is the case. But I think here's a man who is from a personal point of view, what he did with our late great friend James Whale, what he did in going down and taking the one day he had off a week to spend time with James before James tragically passed, to me personally says a lot about Nigel Farage. Now his critics will line up and say, oh, you're saying you'll take on the blob, you'll do this, you'll do that. I actually believe he's the person who will actually try and do it to the best of his ability. Whether that works or not, I don't know, but I think we are tired of platitudes and excuses, and you look at that Labour reshuffle and you just made it brilliantly. It's the same faces. There's no new blood. There's no new politicians, and I just think that most people in this country are going, do you know what? I'm doing everything right, and these people are not listening to me. And I think today what I got from this conference more than any other time is that actually, you know what? He's managed to grasp, as I keep saying, what the British people care about, and he's running with it, and it's working. And I didn't get a Mars bar from Richard Tice.
Well, that's very disappointing, and a real failure, I think, of reform. What's happening tonight and tomorrow, apart from you possibly getting a Mars bar from Richard Tice, because you're going to be there right throughout the conference, aren't you, Jeremy?
That didn't sound right, did it? Getting a Mars bar from Richard Tice. Tonight, believe it or not, just to prove that tonight is the party, and obviously I won't be partaking. But I won't be partaking in that. Obviously, you know I don't drink.
Your body is a temple, Jeremy.
My body is a temple, and many have worshipped. No, don't start. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to finish here, go home, go for a run, have some salad, and then go to bed.
No,
I'm going to party and drink lots of red wine. And the same tomorrow. We're doing lots of inserts from across the auditorium, lots of interviews, lots of stuff. Another speech from Nigel tomorrow, more guests. But I have to say the people have been incredible, and it's been a really positive thing. Tomorrow, Mike, as well, if you're coming to Birmingham, MG is hosting a panel, had several panels on stage today. Yeah, good vibe. Interesting to see it, Pete, from my point of view, because I'm always sat where you're sat, and you're out here getting all the fun. You see behind me where it says bar?
You've been there.
Can I go there now, or what?
I think you probably can go there.
No, I'm about to go. Can I go?
You can.
Right.
Thank you, Jeremy Kyle.
Are we speaking again? When are we speaking again?
I don't know. Are we speaking again? No, we're not. Not today. You can go and get sloshed if you want to. I think you're off the clock. Our political correspondent there, Jeremy Kyle.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye, Jeremy. Thank you to Shelley, says the boats will stop coming within 24 hours if Nigel gets in. Graham says if the ministers were doing such a good job in their departments, they wouldn't have been reshuffled away from them. Margaret in Birmingham says, why is Yvette Cooper sort of promoted Yvette Cooper? Not one boat stopped in 14 months. Just gimmicks from this Home Secretary. Not impressed with this reshuffle. Tony says, Wes Streeting, get the hospital waiting list down as fast as you can. I split my sides laughing over Lammy being the new Deputy Prime Minister, and I'm going to need quite a number of stitches. Pauline says, I don't think anybody would be worse than Angela Rayner, and then they can make David Lammy Deputy Prime Minister. Steve in East Yorkshire, I don't know how Starmer is managing to select people to fill his ministerial appointments given the wealth of talent available. And this guy Sebastian you had on earlier, what planet is he on? Listening to him, I'm in hysterics, thank goodness for incontinence pants. Bill in Thailand, what happens at the Labour conference if the unions demand a new deputy party leader? Great show. Well, I think they're going to get one. It'll be very interesting what happens, because Keir Starmer appears to think that he doesn't need a deputy leader of the Labour Party. I'd be very interested to see what the party faithful up in Manchester, sorry, not Manchester, Liverpool, think about that. The Tories are in Manchester, Labour are in Liverpool. What they think about that, because you have a lot of people who think that the deputy leader, someone like Angela Rayner, will be a real voice for them. So at the moment anyway, the constitution of the Labour Party says that Keir Starmer can just appoint someone in the cabinet, maybe even David Lammy, but there will be a contest in the next few months for that, and that's going to make very, very difficult times for Keir Starmer. We will see what happens there. Dave in Dorset says, with the demise of her indoors, talking about Angela Rayner, who is going to be next to be found out? I wonder how many other MPs and ministers are doing some checks with the appropriate advisors. Well, they're all vetted, we're told, before they become ministers of the Crown. Sometimes that works and sometimes that doesn't. Paul in Portsmouth says the only reason I think Starmer has made Lammy his deputy is to make himself look good. Nick says this reshuffle is like installing new pumps in a sewage works. It's the same stuff, just mixed up in a different way. And on that lovely note, we will go to a break. We'll hear from you afterwards. You want to get your call in, you want to get your voice across, your thoughts on what Nigel's saying, your thoughts on what the government is doing, Keir Starmer, his position. Let me know your thoughts. 0344 499 1000. Stay with us.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Thank you to everybody who's been in touch. You can get your call in between now and 7 o'clock on 03444991000. We think the reshuffle is now over. It certainly looks that way in regard to the cabinet. We have all the list of names. That kind of rolling aspect of things has stopped now. We think there may well be more junior ministers. We still don't have a homelessness minister, for example. And I have a big confession to make. I want to make it absolutely clear that I sincerely and wholeheartedly apologise for the mistake I made earlier on in the programme when I suggested that David Lammy didn't know that Red Leicester wasn't a blue cheese, it wasn't a French cheese. In fact, the professor has been in touch, has watched David Lammy on Celebrity Mastermind, our new Deputy Prime Minister, who was asked who succeeded Henry VIII, to which he said Henry VII, and he was asked what blue cheese traditionally goes with Stilton, and the answer, he said, was Red Leicester. So it wasn't a French cheese, he just didn't know that Red Leicester wasn't a blue cheese, and he thought that Henry VII succeeded Henry VIII. So that's the person who's a heartbeat away from running the country, who is the Deputy Prime Minister. Yeah. Stephen's in Cambridgeshire. Stephen, you've been very patient today. We tried to get you on a couple of times and then stuff happened. It's very good of you to be so patient. What would you like to say about the cabinet reshuffle?
Well, I'm devastated. I've sat here all afternoon and I'm waiting to see Leonardo DiCaprio's name pop up.
Why Leonardo DiCaprio?
Well, he was on the Titanic.
Right.
And Starmer's got nothing left in the tank, has he?
Yeah, I mean, he's moved basically the same people. There are very, very few people who've actually joined cabinet. I mean, Douglas Alexander is Secretary of State for Scotland. He was literally Secretary of State for Scotland 20 years ago. Leonardo DiCaprio, not in the cabinet, but you think this is just shuffling the deck chairs on the Titanic?
Yeah. I mean, Nigel took the impetus earlier by going at 1 o'clock instead of waiting until they made all their announcements. And from what I can see, Starmer's tried to sort of undercut him. Nigel was talking about prioritising skills with the young people, and now all of a sudden Starmer's come up with a department that's going to do everything. You know?
Yeah. Super department. This is the Department of Work and Pensions, which is going to do skills. Pat McFadden's there.
But like Shabana Mahmood, being like
Home Secretary.
Home Secretary. You know, she's already pinned her colours to the mast. So what's she going to do? Well,
hopefully she'll be impartial in what she does in regard to those protests. Stephen, thanks for your thoughts. Thanks also to Miriam, who's driving near Manchester. She says, I'm always suspicious of people who don't know cheese. Never a truer word spoken, Miriam. Thank you. William is in London and has given me a ring, 0344 499 1000. William, you're very welcome to the programme. What would you like to say?
Thank you for taking my call, Peter.
Sure.
That man just took a little bit of my thunder. But Shabana Mahmood, Peter, she let out all these prisoners, didn't she? All these.
That's right.
These bad prisoners.
Yeah.
I'm wondering if she's going to let out the rape gangs quicker instead of deporting them. And Yvette Cooper, she's been moved up a notch to Foreign Secretary from Home Secretary that she's obviously fouled in. I mean, it's ridiculous, Peter, really, isn't it, Peter?
I think it is, and I don't see how, if you're doing a good job at the Home Office, being moved from the Home Office is an endorsement of the job you have done. I've spoken to two Labour people in the course of this programme, both of whom said, oh, she's been promoted and it's all marvellous and she's done a wonderful job in a very difficult brief. I mean, Sebastian Salak said that she's sorting out the issue of small boats. Do you feel that Yvette Cooper can look back at her 14 months at the Home Office with pride?
I've always disliked her, Peter. When she was in the Labour Party many years ago, I've always disliked her attitude. She nods her head all the time when she talks, doesn't she? She's got a narrative, Peter, and whatever question you ask her, she just says the same old thing again. She just repeats it, like most politicians. She's not like Farage, can talk about anything at a drop of a hat. A drop of a pin. When he was protesters today, he was ad-libbing and people were laughing, although he's in a bit of danger, with these protesters. I don't know how they actually get in myself, but I think Starmer's going to be outed, Peter. I think Starmer will be outed. I think they'll.
In what way do you think he'll be outed? In what way?
I think the backbenchers will get him out because.
Okay.
I think everyone knows, Peter, he's so badly disliked by most of the majority of the country.
Sure.
And Hermer, that dangerous man Hermer,
yeah,
he's still in position, Peter.
Yeah, apparently he is. I'm not happy about that, I must say, William. Listen, thanks for your analysis. I really appreciate it. Thanks for your call. Grace is in London and wants to talk about Nigel Farage. Grace, you're very welcome to the programme. What would you like to say?
Hi. Yeah, he mentioned that we need to get back to Judeo-Christian values, and he's said that previously. And I'm really wondering exactly what he means by that, because the phrase gets thrown around a lot, and I'm not entirely sure.
What do you think it means, Grace?
Well, I think that it's really important to consider, and the historian Tom Holland has written about this in particular, but other people have recognised it too. A lot of the things that we take as a given in our society, like the idea that it shouldn't just be survival of the fittest and might is right, the idea that we should care for the vulnerable, the idea that women are full human beings, those ideas which we now think of as obvious, actually historically they became a part of our culture through Jesus' teachings coming into our culture. And, so Judeo-Christian values, I think, include the idea that God made human beings, although I know lots of people don't believe in God, but for those of us who do, each human being has equal value. Is there a difference between Judeo values and Judeo-Christian values, do you think? Yes. Okay. Ultimately, the difference with Christianity, and this is what a number of things that Farage has said are actually contrary to Christ's teachings, but specifically with Christianity, we believe that the way that you can be forgiven and have salvation, because we've all done stuff wrong, we've all messed up in various ways. Of course. Farage used the word sins the other week, and sins are not just the evil things that the Taliban is doing. We've all done stuff wrong. So I'm intrigued as to. Sorry, go ahead. Finish your point. Sorry. Well, yeah, Christ died in our place. So rather than earning our way to heaven, as in lots of other religions, Christ died in our place, and that's fundamental to Christianity. Okay. But I'm wondering what Farage means. What has Farage said that you think is contrary to Christianity or Christian beliefs? At the ARC conference a couple of months ago, talking to Jordan Peterson, he said that we should be teaching kids that it's good to earn money. And I'm afraid that really does skirt too close in my mind to contradicting Jesus' teachings that the love of money is the root of all evil. But it's the love, it's not money is the root of all evil, it's the love of money is the root of all evil. Yes, love of money, yeah. But I think that if you're going to actively teach kids, what's wrong with saying, talking about the value of work and all the things. The value of work is not a bad thing at all. But he specifically talked about encouraging kids to want to get money. He also said that first of all, he puts family, community, and country before anything else. And actually, Christian value is that you follow Jesus first and foremost, and then he teaches that's your number one. We should love others. Okay. You don't put your country before God, for example. Sure. But also, I'm afraid some of the things that he has said about, for instance, wanting to cut aid to the world's most impoverished people are just not Christian. Jesus taught us to love people from other places. So I just wonder how he defines Judeo. Well, perhaps we'll get into that when the next time we speak to Nigel Farage. Listen, thanks for your thoughts, Grace. I really appreciate that. Thanks to Jason as well. He says Starmer hasn't got a clue. If he did, he would have put Graham Stringer in his cabinet. That's the Labour backbencher who has had a number of things to say about Keir Starmer. I wonder what his reaction to the reshuffle will be. I hope to speak to him in the coming days. Lots to discuss. Give us a shout. 03444991000. We'll speak to Mike Graham in just a minute. He's in Birmingham, and see what he thinks of all of this. Stay with us.
It's looking very difficult for her. I mean, she's a first-class hypocrite.
Yeah.
She spent years and years attacking Tories over tax, over second homes. It's just the sheer hypocrisy of these people, you know. Ever since they've got into government, it's been one scandal after another, you know, accepting freebies, you know, matters of, you know, private jets. Well, she should have resigned already.
Yeah.
She should have resigned already.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Thank you to everybody who's been in touch about David Lammy becoming the new Deputy Prime Minister. G says, Lammy as Deputy Prime Minister. This is a wind-up. I said while listening this morning to Mike Graham, it would be a laugh to see Lammy as Deputy Prime Minister. Lo and behold, here he is. What an utter joke this government is. The rest of the world are laughing at us. Speaking of his Celebrity Mastermind appearance, which if you haven't watched it, watch it after the show. I'm telling you, there's a treat in store. Sandy Tregent has been in touch and said during that Celebrity Mastermind experience for David Lammy, he was asked who discovered radium. The answer is, of course, Marie Curie, and he said Marie Antoinette. He also thought that red Leicester was a blue cheese and that the person who succeeded Henry VIII was Henry VII. That person is a heartbeat away from running this country. Ian Murray as well, he's fallen on his sword. He was the Scottish Secretary. Sean's been in touch and says, as Ian Murray's constituent, that teaches him a lesson. Larry the Cat is my idol. Ian Murray slagged off Larry the Cat, calling him a little S-word. Larry is still there. Larry is still in post. Andy says the trouble with practical jokes is that very often they get elected. David says reshuffle news, Starmer keeps Larry as number 10 cat, not his choice. Denise in Hampshire says David Lammy, this is making a mockery. To become British, one must take a history test and remember all the dates when events happen. Lammy would feel straight away as he doesn't know the history of Great Britain. What a joke, says Denise in Hampshire. Denise, there are a load of people who don't know the history of Britain. Believe me, it's a really worrying thing. Leslie says now Rayner no longer has use of the Grace and Favour house. Will she repay the £7,000 for the 2 beds we paid for, says Leslie. Cliff in Berkshire, am I just being cynical, or is this reshuffle designed to distract people from the Reform Conference? Did Sir Keir think this up himself, or was it an advisor? Well, listen, he had to reshuffle really when he knew Deputy Prime Minister. She resigned this morning, but yeah, I mean, it was on the cards for a while, but they delayed it. I was speaking to a senior Labour figure the other day at lunch with him, and he said it was really frustrating that it had taken so long from an internal perspective. Gary says it's musical chairs when the shouting stops, grab a seat. General election 2028, he thinks. Janie B in Essex says, I noticed Streeting has been left where he is. Bit scared if I'm I bet. Certainly wasn't going to be Deputy Prime Minister Wes Streeting, let me tell you. Debbie says, I suppose the reshuffle wasn't helped by the fact Starmer clocks off at 5 o'clock on the Friday. Very good point. It was actually, it actually was finished by 5 o'clock on a Friday. And Colin in County Durham says, David Lammy as Deputy Prime Minister, Starmer will be over the moon to have someone who presents no threat to him. Never thought I'd see the day, says Colin in County Durham. Let's go back to Birmingham Reform Party Conference, Reform UK's conference. Mike Graham, Jeremy Kyle are there. Jeremy hasn't gone to the bar just yet. Mike, your reaction first, Mike, to Deputy Prime Minister David Lammy. I'm sure you're delighted.
Well, I mean, it must be, is it April Fool's Day? I mean, you know, the only good news is that he's not going to be flying around the world anymore. Yeah. Lee Anderson just said in his speech that he knows how to solve the £50 billion black hole problem. He just stop feeding David Lammy and letting him fly around the world.
Come on, look, I've got somebody else for you. This is fun. Look, here we are.
Hello, chaps.
The chairman of Reform has come by.
Nice to see you too.
How hard have we been working today?
Really well. And look, I have to just say thank you so much for everything you did. It was just so good to have you.
It was great. It was good fun.
It was really good, and you were fantastic with people, and that's the point I've been making about this party, which is it is built from the bottom up, not the top down. And you can see that, can't you? You saw the enthusiasm of everyone.
There's a real vibe in the building.
It's a fantastic vibe. And I've just got here like literally half an hour ago.
Rude.
Sorry.
Part-time.
Exactly.
Small matter of Angela Rayner to deal with on the show.
Well, I had to rewrite. So I obviously had to rewrite.
Because you had to move the speech, right?
I had to change the speeches. I had to give updated news. Jeremy did the same as well.
Well, luckily you're good at that.
Well, we've had a lot of training on Talk, haven't we?
Well, Talk has been amazing. That's very good.
Yes.
Well done.
Well trained.
On a serious note, Mr. Chairman, who I've seen in shorts at 7 o'clock in the morning. Interesting.
You loved it.
Never mind. What did you feel? The speech was brilliant, really, really well written, really well presented. What did you feel about the people in the hall today? For me, doing what I was doing, running around, there's a real feeling of a seminal moment in British politics.
So I think people at last can see a party that represents them. They are sick and tired of the country being sold down the river, where we give people who are coming here illegally more rights than people who were born in this country. And that seems just deeply unfair. This is a country in terminal decline, and I think what people can see with Nigel, and look, he's such a brilliant, charismatic leader, and the team, and we've got really normal people who represent us, and I think people are going, thank goodness, you are the last-ditch attempt to save the United Kingdom.
Well, you speak their language is what they miss from the people. They've got these automatons in Downing Street, right?
I was saying that I loved the most important article over the weekend for me with Nigel was when he said, they're going to have a go at me. They're going to say I drink and I smoke and I've had a few women in my life and I've gambled. And he went, yeah, I have. Because I'm not pretending to be some squeaky, quick, clean person from some, I don't know, tax unit who's never done a day's work. The British people, what they want is, really that's my plan, and I might be flawed and I might make... Do we want to talk about that?
No, I don't think we're allowed to.
I don't think we're allowed to. But what I will tell you is that, you know, if you are promoting David Lammy to be Deputy Prime Minister, you are really out of ideas, aren't you? And out of time.
He's also the Justice Secretary. He frankly should jail himself because he didn't have a fishing rod licence.
That's a really good point.
It is a good point.
Very good. I mean, you've got a whole list of these, obviously.
Honestly, I've got them all day provided by Mikey, but it's true that,
it is absolutely right.
I mean, can I just take you back to when I've been doing this for 6 years? Our first conference, we had like 200 people. When you look 10,000 over 2 days, I think you can see the professionalisation. I launched Reform Go, this new app this morning. We not only are the most popular party in this country, but we're also technologically the most
by far
advanced.
and away.
And that is because we have such a passionate group of people who are determined to change the country.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, Daily Mail, only this morning when they splashed on Nadine Dorries coming to Reform, and their editorial basically said, you know, the world has changed. People don't want Labour and the Tories anymore. So when you got the Daily Mail saying it, that you know that you are the answer, basically they're saying unite the right.
Peter Cardwell was trying to talk.
Hello,
I do apologise.
Sorry, Peter. Sorry, I thought we'd taken over the show.
Guys, take it away. Seriously, I'm really interested in what all three of you have to say. You're there. You're in the thick of it in Birmingham.
I thought the interesting thing was when I went to the merchandise store, you know, I like a sense of humour. Harry was selling, and I said to Harry, what's the significance of the number 10 on the shirt? And he went, well, is he going to play striker? And I went, are people buying shirts from me? But they were, by the bucket load. What's really interesting here is as well...
It used to be inside left, you know, number 10.
We're showing our age again.
Really?
What's interesting here is, though, it's... I was so amazed. Different businesses, different age groups, different demographics.
A lot of young people.
A lot of young people, but also just people, and there's a word, Nigel used it when we were backstage earlier, hope. You get the feeling in this building that there is real hope building in the United Kingdom.
When you have the big corporates, and remember, they only back winners. So I think that's a really interesting litmus test. The fact is, and you can see that, can't you, with the business lounge, for example, with the people who are sponsoring this event, they know we're going to win, and I'm determined we are going to win, and I will make sure that Nigel is the next Prime Minister.
And also Nigel came around to what I've been saying just this week and said, you know, he thinks 2027 for an election, because this lot
which is what
can't
you said,
go. I've been saying somebody is somehow going to find a way to get them out, and it looks like they're going to find a way to get themselves out.
Well, you know, somebody said the other day, you know, we all know that Rachel Thieves is incapable of adding up and the country is bankrupt, and at some point she's going to have to go on bended knee to the IMF. The IMF hasn't got the money. And I wasn't, you know, I don't know about Liz Truss, I don't want to get in that debate, but she was forced out when the gilt bonds got into trouble, and you can see exactly the same happening.
Worse.
It's much worse.
Much worse. But you see, isn't it interesting? The mainstream media do not report.
Of course they don't.
So why don't they?
Because they're terrified. The mainstream media will actually be quaking in its boots. I watched all these reporters today, and you can see there's this sort of realisation that however much they write...
There's nothing they can do now.
So I was walking through the tunnel to come here, and this woman said with the microphone, I'm from the BBC. Why are you here? And I said, is that on? And she said, no. And I went, whether it is or not, I don't talk to the BBC because you don't tell the truth. And
well said.
on. And it's true.
Yeah.
I mean...
Print that.
Yeah.
well, quite. I mean, obviously...
But it's true.
I mean, look, it's really...
Oh, sorry, the chairman of the party can't say that.
I would just say we need to reach as many people in this country.
Of course you do.
And I will embrace any type of media, broadcast media, print media, of course. And actually, they are so powerful. But I've circumvented all of this, as you know. I spoke about this earlier. I, obviously, 30 years in the business, I built a TV studio in Reform HQ.
I've seen it.
Because I was determined that we're going to broadcast what we want.
And let me tell you this, there is nothing like that in British politics.
No,
I walked around, I was shown around very kindly, and I thought, wow, this is the future. Because, they've got, fundraising over there, they've got, social media over there, they've got briefing room over here, your studio. I mean,
my
it's
office,
absolutely fantastic.
Mike. Have you seen my office?
I wasn't allowed in there.
No, quite right.
They said they couldn't trust me not to repeat what I saw.
It is actually, yes.
And the office?
You are fired again.
You're not firing me again, no. We had quite a good day.
We had a great day.
We're going to have a drink. Oh, hold on, Cardwell's off.
I've got to go, but yes.
Where are you going?
Where are you buying?
Oh, I'm buying. Listen, I'll buy.
Wherever
Don't
the
mind.
shortest walk is, I think.
Yeah.
Are you're partying later?
I think I'm introducing Nigel.
Fantastic. Mr. Chairman, we'll see you tomorrow.
Lovely. Thank you ever so much.
He's signing the invoice, so got to be nice.
Nice to
see you later, buddy.
With the family.
God bless you. See you later. Thank you.
What a day.
Yeah, just fascinating for me because I've never. I mean, I always imagine party conferences like that.
Yeah.
Real vibe.
You don't want to go.
Real energy.
You really don't want to go.
And actually, Pete, to be honest with you, a sort of an interesting moment for me, and I imagine the people who are here, they're buzzing. They are buzzing. To be fair.
Fascinating stuff, Mike.
And again, Lee Anderson. Yeah, sorry, go on.
No, go ahead, Mike. Go ahead. Final thought.
I was going to say Lee Anderson he was the final speaker today, and I was able to catch the end of his speech, and he basically just said, look, our duty is to look after this country of ours. We've got a great country, and all we have to do is leave it in a better state than it was when we found it. And he said that at the moment isn't happening, and we've got to get this government out because they're completely useless. And he said, basically, everybody here, we want our country back. And a huge cheer went up, and that's what everybody wants.
Okay,
I think that's absolutely right. Pete's got about 37 seconds to the news.
Feed them down.
Thank you. We're going to go now to the after party because it's important. You have a lovely time and give my love to Jodie and Ryan. See you on Monday.
Have fun.
Cheerio.
Cheers, Jeremy. Thank you. Thank you very much. Jeremy actually won't see you on Monday because he's not on until Tuesday. Pedri Hoskin is doing Drive on Monday. Jeremy will be here on Tuesday, Wednesday and Thursday, and I'll be here on Friday, so a little bit different next week. Loads to talk about, including the reshuffle, Reform UK conference. Let's get your views on the air in the next hour as well. 0344 499 1000 is the number to call. You can get your thoughts in. And Andy says, Jezza, David and Mike, dream team, says Andy. I agree. Chat soon.
across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Well, a very good evening. This is Talk Drive. Thank you so much for your company. It's just gone 6 o'clock. The Cabinet has been reshuffled. The Deputy Prime Minister is David Lammy. The Home Secretary is Shabana Mahmood. The Foreign Secretary is Yvette Cooper. There are many other changes as well. Of course, this comes after former Deputy Prime Minister Angela Rayner has resigned. We also know that Nigel Farage at Reform UK conference in Birmingham, where we've just been with David Bull, remember him, the chairman of Reform UK, and Jeremy Kyle and Mike Graham. They've been reporting from there, telling us what Nigel Farage has been saying. He says he'll stop the boats in 2 weeks in the event of a Reform UK government. What do you think of all of that? Give us a call, let us know your thoughts. 0344 499 1000 is the number to call. You can text me 87222 with the word talk in your text. You can tweet me at talkTV. Follow me at Peter Cardwell. You can send me a voice note, less than a minute please. You can send me a WhatsApp text message or give me a ring on 0344 499 1000. Loads to discuss here on Talk. We'll talk to a Conservative, remember them, in a minute. Stay with us. Well, Saqib Bhatti is with me. He is a Conservative MP for Meriden Solihull East. Saqib, thank you for joining me this evening. I appreciate your time. Nadine Dorries has left your party for Reform UK. She says the Conservatives are dead. Why is she wrong?
Well, look, I wish her well, first of all. You know, I don't know Nadine very well. I came across her a little bit when she was lobbying Conservative MPs to vote for the online safety bill, the bill that she designed. So, you know, I wish her well. I disagree with her fundamentally. Look, there's no secret. We had a hard time in the general election.
You're still having a hard time, though, aren't you? Because you're third in many polls, around 16% in some polls.
Well, look, we had a hard time last year. We had a drubbing at the general election. There was a lot of rebuilding to do, right? There is a process that we have to go through. But we also got our party conference in a couple of weeks. So
has anything actually been rebuilt under Kemi Badenoch? Because you've got your party conference in a few weeks' time. You'll be missing a number of key characters. Sir Jake Berry, he was the chairman of the party who arranged Conservative Party conference. He's gone to Reform UK. Nadine Dorries as well said this at Reform UK conference in Birmingham earlier on today. Let's take a look.
I'm going to deliver probably a slightly more serious message. The reason why is this government is in deep and serious trouble. It is falling apart. It is dividing and fracturing. The Conservative Party did that a number of years ago. But it's not just our political parties which are in trouble. It's the country too.
I would imagine, Saqib, you would actually agree with Nadine Dorries that the country is in trouble. I wonder what you make of the Cabinet reshuffle today, the fact the Deputy Prime Minister has resigned.
Peter, the reason the Labour Party is in trouble today is because the Conservatives have been pushing and pushing as the official opposition to find out the truth about Angela Rayner's home and tax affairs.
Do you really think it was all down to you? I mean, there were quite a few journalists involved as well.
Well, of course, and it was, it was the Conservatives working and pushing. There were plenty of journalists who said there was nothing to see here. The Labour Party was saying there was nothing to see here. We pushed and we pushed. There was
campaigning journalism by the Telegraph and by the Sun on Sunday, by Kate Ferguson as well.
Yeah, and we brilliant journalists, and I will call them out for being absolutely brilliant for doing their patriotic duty.
It's not patriotic; it's just journalistic. It's not patriotic.
Well, it was all that time. It wasn't Nigel Farage. It wasn't Reform. Nigel Farage was in America talking down Britain just a couple of days ago, right? That was what was going on. He was talking about why he's not in Parliament. That's what he was about. It's the Conservatives who were in Parliament pushing and making sure that we were keeping it.
What impact have you made in the last 14 months? What impact have the Conservatives made in the last 14 months? We were making sure. Well, the Deputy Prime Minister has had to own up to her mistakes, and once again. We've highlighted the fact that Keir Starmer cannot make a decision. So you asked me about the reshuffle. I think he's rearranging the chairs on the deck of the Titanic. You know, there isn't going to be an iota of difference. We put a deterrent in place when it came to stopping illegal immigration. They got rid of that. We've seen what they've done. You cannot argue, Saqib, that the Conservatives sorted out or were going to sort out illegal immigration.
Well, hang on. I didn't say we sorted out. I said we put a deterrent in place that they.
Well, it wasn't actually operational, so you didn't put it in place.
It was in place, and
it wasn't operational.
We were started to take people across and test the mechanisms. But the key thing is, you asked me what we did, and the Labour Party took that away. We've seen what's happened with Rachel Reeves's budget. We're the ones in Parliament holding Rachel Reeves to account. We know that Keir Starmer and the Chancellor are going to have to come up with serious.
But no one's listening, Saqib. No one's listening. Look at your poll ratings. You may be working very hard. I'm sure you're a very diligent person, and you're trying to hold the government to account. No one's listening. And I mean, you know, you've talked about Angela Rayner. Kemi Badenoch asked 1-2 questions about it at Prime Minister's Questions. You must have been sitting there thinking, come on, Kemi, stick the boot in here. We've got a Deputy Prime Minister on the ropes. And then she talks about the economy, which is, yeah, it's important, but it'll be there next week. Angela Rayner won't.
Peter, I disagree with you. I think the criticism of Kemi was completely unfair. I was on Sky News watching her, and I came on there and I said that Angela Rayner should resign. But Kemi asked the question. She actually said, she told Keir Starmer to grow a backbone and do the right thing. He didn't do it. That's what a responsible leader does.
Why didn't she grow a backbone and ask all of her 6 questions on that? Hammer at home. Be the opposition. Get the get the country talking to an even greater degree. Prime Minister's Questions is one of the very few times that the opposition is basically guaranteed media coverage in the week. And I mean, do you not agree with me that Kemi Badenoch fluffed it?
No, I disagree with you, Peter. I completely disagree with you. I think she asked a question, she pushed it. And by the way, I disagree with you about the fact that the economy, the issues, of course, they'll be there next week because we've got Rachel Reeves in charge of our economy and the harm that's being done. But there are serious questions to be answered on that. But she did push, and she did say to Keir Starmer, and it was as a result of the work the Conservatives have been pushing, and of course, as you rightly say, the great work of the investigative journalists. And we kept on pushing. And on Wednesday, I said that Angela Rayner should resign. The Labour Party kept denying that that was the case. It's always been the Conservatives holding the Labour Party to account and standing up for this country.
But the fact is that you've had your own troubles. You've had many scandals within the Conservative Party. That you had, for example, Priti Patel, who was seen to be bullying. You had the fines against Rishi Sunak, against Boris Johnson because of breaking lockdown. I mean, it's not as if you've got the moral high ground in the Conservative Party, have you?
I think every politician has to be responsible. We are elected to do a job, and when the rules are broken, there has to be consequences. And that's why when I went on air on Wednesday, I said Angela Rayner should resign. It was quite obvious. I'm a chartered accountant by background. I used to advise family business owners that have to day in, day out worry about HMRC tax investigations and complying with the law. And that it was quite clear that Angela Rayner had a responsibility to not just be consistent with what she said when we had the situation with Nadeem Zahawi, because, by the way, she had said, why do you need to wait for an ethics advisor at the time? But there are laws and rules that she had to comply with. The fact of the matter is every member of Parliament has to show integrity and work, and if they don't, there's consequences, quite rightly.
And I mean, that's really interesting. I interviewed Mike Wood yesterday. I interviewed Graham Stewart on Wednesday. You, in the last minute or so, have given a really straightforward, very easy to understand and well expressed, I would argue, criticism of Angela Rayner. I just don't think Kemi Badenoch did that at Prime Minister's Questions. I mean, do you think the time has come for maybe people to question Kemi Badenoch's future?
Peter, you can ask me this question as many which ways you want. I'm going to tell you again, I disagree with you. I think Kemi did exactly the right thing. She had to push on it. And by the way, if this had continued, I'm confident that Kemi would have asked all 6 questions next week, just like Keir Starmer.
Well, why did she do it this week? Okay, all right. Well,
she did. Come on.
Well, she didn't. She asked 2 questions, then she asked the rest of the economy.
She asked Keir Starmer to grow a backbone, and guess what? He didn't grow a backbone.
All right, okay. Let's just remind ourselves of what Nigel Farage said earlier about stopping the boats. This is at Reform Party conference in Birmingham. It's happening at the moment.
We will stop what is a threat to our national security, what is a danger to girls and women on our streets. We will stop the boats, and we will detain and deport those who illegally break into our country, doing what nearly every normal country around the rest of the world does. You cannot come here illegally and stay. We will stop the boats within 2 weeks of winning government.
Saqib Badi, what do you disagree with in what Nigel Farage said there?
look, we put together a deportation bill that came out back in July. And look, it's really important. You said something earlier, and I do agree with you. You say people aren't listening. Of course, building trust takes time. It does take time. And we obviously, and we've been very humble about this, there should have been more done around illegal immigration. We were constantly challenged by the Labour Party, but we put together a plan around deportation, and that was the first stage of this. Nigel Farage, actually, I watched him when he put it at his press conference. A lot of it was a copy and paste job, and the rest of it, I think it lacked detail. At no point, I don't think, Peter, you'll be able to tell me how he's going to achieve what he's saying. He's very good at saying what he thinks people want to hear. I get that, but how is he actually going to do that? We're doing the important work, Peter. This is really important.
Okay.
Right? We are doing the important work around the European Convention on Human Rights. It's a big question. This is how you deal with it. What implications does it have?
Nigel says just withdraw. Why not just withdraw?
Well, look, because I'll tell you why. Because the important thing now is that you come out with the answers of how you deal with the Refugee Convention and the Good Friday Agreement. We have led the way on this, Peter, and you might disagree with me on this, but even Jack Straw now thinks we should be leaving the ECHR.
Yeah, so does David Blanca. So we'll see what happens.
Nigel Farage, of course, coming under huge criticism from his own membership for not putting forward something. He panicked because he knew we were doing all the hard work.
Okay.
And he did a copy and paste job.
Okay, Saqib, the good news for you is that I'm going to hold Reform UK, Labour and everybody else to exactly the same standards I've held you to today. Thank you very much for joining us. I appreciate that. Patrick McGuire is with me now, Chief Political Commentator of The Times, author of Get In, author of Left Out, the #1 criminologist of the Labour Party. Patrick, a pleasure to have you on the programme. Where is Labour at 13 minutes past 6 this evening? Tell us your impressions of the last 24 hours.
Well, let's just say, Peter, they're rather different to my impressions this morning. I don't think anybody in Westminster, apart from the small circle of people in Number 10 who knew about it, expected such a wide-ranging reshuffle to follow what has to be one of the most humiliating moments in Keir Starmer's premiership, to lose his deputy, having so extravagantly and lavishly praised her, in these circumstances. And for weeks and weeks, we've been told by Number 10 not to expect a big reshuffle of the cabinet. That's exactly what's happened now. And from the big appointments, most notably the hardline Shabana Mahmood going to the Home Office, it suggests that Labour is doubling down on a strategy of taking the fight straight to reform, even though that's a fight and a strategy that they don't appear to have been winning with.
Fascinating. What do you make of the fact that Ian Murray and Lucy Powell have left the cabinet as well? One as Scottish Secretary, slagged off Larry the Cat. Now, Larry's still there, he isn't. And Lucy Powell going as well after her gaffe on any questions, saying that to talk about rape gangs was a dog whistle issue.
Well, Peter, I'm not surprised that Ian Murray lost his copybook with you, of all people. Maybe he can guest present Cat of the Week as penance. But no, look, Ian Murray, one of the few people who have stuck with the Scottish Labour Party through the most difficult period in its history, was a surprising sacking. He was the only Scottish Labour MP left in 2015, basically rebuilt that party single-handedly. Lots of Labour MPs and fellow cabinet colleagues pretty shocked at his treatment. Lucy Powell, she of the infamous question time, any questions rather, remark about grooming gangs, less surprising. There was no great love between her and Keir Starmer. And intriguingly, given that the leadership question around Keir Starmer hasn't really abated, he's bought himself time with this reshuffle and how bold it is. Andy Burnham, in losing Lucy Powell, has lost one of his few fellow Mancunian allies around the cabinet table. But it's interesting, Ian Murray and Lucy Powell will be in no mood to help out Downing Street. They are both people with pretty bold politics of their own. Lucy Powell isn't backward about coming forward. So, they are dangerous people like Louise Haigh, who helped organise the Welfare Rebellion. They're dangerous people to have on the back benches if, as we can expect, the shuffling of deck chairs around that cabinet table hasn't necessarily solved anything.
I like all the best people, Louise Haigh, finding a partner from Northern Ireland as well. Patrick, tell me your thoughts on what Angela Rayner does now.
I think in the immediate term, she takes some time out. One of the things that people don't appreciate about Angela Rayner, given her bombastic public image, is that she doesn't much like the harsh spotlight of politics. She will have found this past week very difficult. Indeed, that's one of the reasons she got herself into this mess, because for a long time she has tried and tried and tried to make sure people like you and I know basically nothing about her personal life. Now, that's her right, but it means when the spotlight of scrutiny is shone on your personal life, you're not really equipped to deal with it. So I think in the immediate term, she will take some time out. You probably won't hear from her in Westminster or the Commons in a while. And all eyes will be, when does she get up? What is her first contribution? Because you better believe if this very Blairite-looking cabinet backslides on her passion projects, most notably workers' rights and relationships with the unions, she will at one stage want to say something about it. And there's no real love lost between her and Keir Starmer's team, despite Keir Starmer's heartfelt letter to her. So she will be keeping her powder dry, both out of, you know, emotion and necessity for a while, but she will at some point pop up. She promised to be supportive, but still have a point to prove.
What do you make of the fact that we are dealing with largely, not entirely, but largely the same personalities? This is a reshuffle. In the reshuffles I've covered and just sort of viewed and read and thought about, there are very few reshuffles of this magnitude. I've seen some smaller ones where some people move about a little bit, but this is quite a big reshuffle, but it's most of the same faces. What do you think that tells us about Keir Starmer and the position that he's in and his strength as leader of the Labour Party as well as Prime Minister?
It's a really good point. I mean, he's only sacked a couple of people, as you say. You know, Angela Rayner's gone. Ian Murray's been sacked, Lucy Powell's been sacked, everybody else is staying in government. I know people in Number 10 I've been speaking to today would have liked this reshuffle to be more dramatic, but you're absolutely right. If you're an unpopular Prime Minister in an unstable position, you can't afford to sack people. I mean, Peter, you'll remember that time Greg Clark went into Number 10 to see Theresa May. He was due to be demoted or sacked, and after about 4 hours he emerged with the same job, and Keir Starmer's basically in that same position. I mean, look at David Lammy, demoted from the Foreign Office to the Justice Secretary job. He couldn't even do that without making him Deputy Prime Minister. I mean, I believe he kicked up a bit of a fuss. So he's not exactly in the strongest position. So you're absolutely right to point that out. And what matters is less those changes than two people in those really important jobs Keir Starmer's identified. The first is Shabana Mahmood, who I've mentioned before, and then Pat McFadden, the government's utility player, taking on the Department for Work and Pensions. He's basically been told, you've got to fix the labour market, you've got to get people back into work, and at some point we're going to have another crack at welfare reform. Liz Kendall couldn't do it, you've got to do it. Keir Starmer's put two of his most trusted lieutenants in those two key jobs. Yeah. So really, all of the other changes are basically cosmetic.
And not exactly a ringing endorsement of Yvette Cooper after 14 months. She is, of course, one of the most experienced secretaries of state. But immigration, as you'll know, probably the biggest issue for our viewers and listeners. Do you believe that Shabana Mahmood can sort this out?
Well, speaking to people in the Home Office as the changing of the guard happened, they point out that the returns deal with France is starting to make its returns in the next couple of weeks. The French Navy's new maritime tactics, which are meant to be more aggressive, are about to start. So they're confident that this won't be the worst ever year for migrant crossings, and Shabana Mahmood will start off on a good foot. But until the government confronts the big question of the European Convention on Human Rights, which, given Richard Herman still Attorney General and Keir Starmer as Prime Minister, is unlikely, I think Shabana Mahmood is more open to that sort of argument, but probably won't win it within government. I think we're basically going to see more of the same, but Shabana Mahmood will probably, unlike Yvette Cooper, be willing to have a much more confrontational and provocative political style. But as we all know, you know, rhetoric is one thing. What the public is sick of is politicians making really bold promises and then delivering nothing. And if Shabana Mahmood, talented though she is, ends up in that position, the Labour government standing vis-a-vis reform is going to be even worse than it is now, I suspect.
You and I were both in Liverpool last year at Labour Party conference. It's in Liverpool again this year. What do you predict the mood is going to be like, and what are the party faithful going to be saying, the ordinary members of the Labour Party going to be saying about who or what the sort of procedure should be in regard to deputy leader? My understanding is that the Prime Minister can appoint a deputy leader in the interim, but eventually that has to be voted on, and presumably there could be quite a divisive deputy leadership election with quite a number of people saying things quite critical of Keir Starmer.
Yeah, exactly. I think that conference is going to be a beauty parade for the deputy leadership. We've got to keep an eye on cabinet ministers speaking from the stage, and ambitious backbenchers from the left in particular speaking to events on the conference fringe. So it's the last thing Keir Starmer needs. I'm actually quite surprised that Downing Street allowed Labour HQ to fire the starting gun on that election today, they must be confident that, given that any candidate will need 80 MPs, that they can probably stitch it up. But knowing what we do about Labour MPs, they've basically gone feral. I think they'll really appreciate the chance to have a kick at Downing Street. And the Labour membership isn't going to just take their instructions from number 10. We know the centre of gravity of the Labour membership is way to the left of this government. And even though I suspect the mood at conference, particularly after this reshuffle, might be a little bit more upbeat than we expected, Keir Starmer's got to make the speech of his life. We know he doesn't really have that in him. And he'll have to say something compelling that unites a party that's once again at war with itself. And given that this cabinet is a pretty right-wing one, he's probably not going to play the sort of tunes that the membership like, which probably makes a divisive leadership election inevitable.
So when can we expect a deputy leadership election?
I think there's no desire to get it done quickly. I think the process will kick off in a couple of weeks. Labour's ruling National Executive Committee has got to meet and decide the timetable. I suspect it'll be wrapped up by the end of this year, but I suspect also that Keir Starmer will want to go as long as he possibly can. But all eyes on whether David Lammy runs, right?
Yeah,
he's now the Deputy Prime Minister. He's not the Deputy Leader of the Labour Party. Do they try and stitch it up for him? Well, I'm not entirely sure that Labour members will say, oh, the guy that's been leading on policy on Gaza is the chap we want as Deputy Leader of our party. Yeah. So it's fraught with danger for Keir Starmer, no matter if it's quick or long.
Just finally, I've got to go to a break, but who else do you think might stand, or who do you think would be in a position to get 80 members? You've said probably someone from the left, but whether they can get 80 or not might be a big question.
Yeah, look, until this morning, everybody in the PLP was talking about Shabana Mahmood, although she's got a big job now. Maybe David Lammy will want to run again, has a busy cabinet job. From within the cabinet, Wes Streeting and Bridget Phillipson are also named. Ed Miliband has been tipped. I suspect he doesn't want it. And then you have a sort of fairly motley crew of rebels and dispossessed ex-ministers. Emily Thornberry, Dawn Butler, Richard Bergen. These are all the people who will be thinking about it and could well be facing off against the anointed candidate of Keir Starmer's cabinet.
And then he'll be under pressure to put them in the cabinet when they become deputy leader if they're not in there already. Patrick, thank you very, very much indeed. That's Patrick McGuire there, chief political commentator at The Times. I'm reading his book at the moment. It's called Get In, about Labour and their first year and how they won the election. He's a fantastic writer and broadcaster. Left Out is a book I read as well, and Patrick knows the Labour Party top to bottom. He writes in The Times every week on a Friday, and those columns are a must read for political nerds like me and people generally interested in politics too. We're going to talk about this more with Matthew Lavender, a former Labour advisor. We'll get your thoughts on all of everything that's happened today. It's been a big, dramatic day in politics. Nigel Farage, of course, we'll talk more about to his big speech at Reform UK conference. We've been there a couple of times already with Mike and Jeremy and a couple of others as well. Loads to discuss here on Talk. Get your call in 0344 499 1000.
across the UK. On DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Stephen says we're 14 months in and this is the same sort of desperate reshuffle I've seen towards the end of a government. After this, there's nowhere for Starmer or Labour to go. They are finished, says Stephen. Dawn in Chelmsford says, I bet Yvette Cooper is relieved to be moved because she doesn't have to update us on the one in, one out process, says Dawn, or progress. Sandy's been in touch and says, Peter, you're so patient. Well done for pointing out to the Conservative commentator. It was mainly the journalist who got Rayner out. Quite rightly. All the best, says Sandy. Another person says, it's so embarrassing hearing Conservatives putting a brave face on failure and pretending Kemi Badenoch is making progress. Mark says, I support reform, so if Nigel Farage could stop the boats within 2 weeks and has the best interests of our country at heart, why does he not tell Keir Starmer how to do it? Well, let's talk to Matthew Lavender. He's a former Labour advisor. Matthew, thanks for joining us this morning. Do you think Keir Starmer is in a sign of strength that he has had to reshuffle here? I mean, certainly Angela Rayner going wasn't on his radar. This seems to be, as Patrick Maguire was telling us a few minutes ago, a much bigger reshuffle than Labour was expecting even this morning.
Yeah, I don't think it shows that Keir Starmer's in a position of strength, because I think I agree with Patrick. This is not something they wanted to do. This was not a move that they were planning to make. Certainly when they woke up, I think, on Monday morning, I don't think this is what they were planning. And therefore, I think you have to say, sort of by definition, it's not from a position of strength. But I do think, given that it's a situation that's been forced on him, he's done what he wanted to do. I mean, this is quite a bold set of moves, you know, shifting around your Foreign Secretary, your Home Secretary, making a series of moves further down. Definitely suggests to me that he has been thinking about this. He's got some big moves in mind, and he's sort of betting his chips on this group of people to do it in these roles. So I don't necessarily think it's a sign of strength because he wanted to do it, but I certainly think he's not done it in a defensive way, because in reaction to the Angela Rayner stuff, he's kind of made the most of the opportunity, or trying to make an opportunity out of the sort of crisis that's been presented to him.
What happens now, do you think? I mean, we were told phase 2 starts at the start of this week. We've got Nigel Farage in Birmingham saying he can stop the boats in 2 weeks. Do you think, as Patrick was saying as well, he believes that Labour has decided to kind of take on reform a bit more by having a more right-wing cabinet than previously, although these things, of course, are all relative. But so many of the people are just the same. There's only actually been 2 people who've left government, apart from Angela Rayner, obviously, Lucy Powell and Ian Murray.
Yeah, I don't think he's made this cabinet more right-wing than it was before, for precisely the reason that you say, Peter, that he hasn't actually moved many people in or out. I do think the balance has shifted slightly because of Angela Rayner departing, but actually I think what's striking in some ways about this reshuffle is how there are no new people. You know, there are no real promotions. Maybe Emma Reynolds in DEFRA, which is a relatively small department, aside. There's no one really being promoted from outside. There are no newbies or fresh blood. He's very much just moving the deck chairs around within his own team. So no, I don't.
Douglas Alexander as well. I mean, he was literally Scottish Secretary 20 years ago. He was Scottish Secretary 20 years ago. It's like sort of Back to the Future.
Yeah, so I don't think there's a move there. Though I do think the one area where you mentioned in your question about Nigel Farage and reform and stop the boats, I do think that Shabana Mahmood at the Home Office, you're going to see a tougher line on immigration and crime than you were hearing with Yvette Cooper, because I think that is something that Shabana Mahmood believes. I think her politics is going to be much more aggressive on that. I think she's in quite close lockstep with Number 10 about the political need to take on Nigel Farage, and so I do think you will see rhetoric that, I mean, it depends on your point of view. Some people will say it's a good thing. There'll be many Labour MPs who feel uncomfortable about it, but I definitely think there's been a conscious move in that regard, even if the whole cabinet, as a collective, has not necessarily moved left or right as a result of this.
Who's the next deputy leader of the Labour Party, do you think?
I think it's really, really hard to say. I think probably Shabana Mahmood is in a good position to go for it now, and I imagine will be the candidate of sort of Keir Starmer or maybe the candidate of Morgan McSweeney. But whether or not that actually works, I think that, the party and even the parliamentary party are not going to be in a particularly happy place right now. They're not going to be pleased about seeing Angela Rayner go, and so a lot of it comes down to who stands. In some ways, I don't want to dodge the question.
No,
Peter.
sure. It's hard to know, though. It is hard to know where this goes.
It is really hard to know. I think in some ways the question that's most interesting is who runs, because if you're Rachel Reeves, you're not gonna run because you might lose and that would dent your authority. If you're Wes Streeting, do you run, potentially risk losing, which is a real damaging thing? But then do you end up with a contest for deputy leader, kind of between the people that aren't the most, these are not the most senior people in the government, and you sort of end up with a group of, I don't mean this disparagingly, but sort of mid-ranking cabinet ministers. You could have Shabana Mahmood and Peter Cardwell and a couple of backbenchers competing for it, which would be quite odd when you consider that the really important people in this government are people more senior who've chosen not to fight. So I think
the rules. Well, that's a really good point. And the rules are that you've got to have 80 MPs nominating you. So there'll probably only be 4, maximum 5 candidates anyway, but they're in a situation as well where there may well be a candidate of the left, and then if that person, let's do the sort of nightmare scenario and say it's Richard Bergen becomes deputy leader of the Labour Party, although I think we can all move to Timbuktu if he does, then there'll be pressure to put him in the cabinet, certainly.
Yeah, I mean, Richard Bergen's not going to be deputy leader of the Labour Party.
Thank goodness for that.
I think you can get off rightmove.timbuktu.com.
Right.
But I don't think there's any chance of that. I mean, I think there's a good chance that I think the candidates you will only see, I think in the end, because of those thresholds, I think you'll only see 2 or 3 serious candidates who actually stand a chance. The real question, I think, comes, does the candidate of the sort of the Keir Starmer, Morgan McSweeney camp, the loyalist candidate, whether it's Shabana Mahmood or someone else, can they compete against a candidate who might appeal more to the members? Now, if you look at some of the polling done by people like Labour List, there are certain people who are really popular. Angela Rayner was one. Ed Miliband's another. Realistically, he's not going to run for the job. But there are going to be a series of people that might run against her, and that could be an interesting contest. But I don't think whoever it is, I mean, we're talking here between the centre-right, Blairite wing of the party and the soft left. We're not going to have Jeremy Corbyn Mark II being deputy leader.
Thank you very much for that. I think you should perhaps set up your own Labour List style website called the Lavender List. It hasn't been done before.
I think that's been done before, but then again, nothing's ever new, is it really, Peter?
That's true. Matthew Lavender, thank you, former Labour advisor. We're going to talk to John Lucas in a second about what's in the Sun tomorrow. I would imagine Angela Rayner will be on the front yet again, or maybe Keir Starmer. Will find out what John has to tell us. We'll hear from you as well before 7 o'clock. Lots of time to get your call in. 0344 499 1000.
across the UK. On DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Let's talk about what's in the Sun tomorrow. John Lucas is with us, the night news editor. Unsurprisingly, Angela's reign over.
That's right, yeah, Angela Rayner. She's gone. I think this was supposed to be Starmer's Phase 2 launch this week, but
hasn't gone very well.
It hasn't. It's a cabinet bloodbath, really. So no, I'm sure you've been talking about all afternoon.
Yeah,
She's finally had to go. So it's 2 weeks ago. Actually, the Sun on Sunday sort of brought this into.
Yeah, I've had Kate Ferguson on. Yeah, she's in Birmingham. Yeah,
exactly. With the revelation about Angela Rayner's third home that she purchased in Brighton, and we've had 2 weeks of, well, hang on, you know, has she paid the right stamp duty? Where did the money come from to buy this? And all these shenanigans have gone round. She's obviously insisted that she hasn't done anything wrong, but a standards investigations found that no, you did, and she's had to go. It's been obvious for days that she was going to have to go, and we've had a good reshuffle today. So David Lammy is going to replace her, Deputy PM. Shabana Mahmood is going in as Home Secretary. So that's an interesting one, because lots of people are saying, well, actually, she's quite for Labour. She's quite hard line.
Yeah.
So she might be able to sort of make some headway with the migrant issue.
Not exactly a ringing endorsement of Yvette Cooper over the last 14 months. She's off to foreign.
No, exactly. Yeah, but I mean, people are saying she's a bit more sort of soft touch, and she can do the don't mean soft touch, but you know, she can do the diplomatic stuff.
Yeah,
behind
soft
the
skills.
Soft skills, that's it, which is a bit more suitable for that office. And yeah, so it's an interesting week. But I mean, look, it all comes back to these big issues of trust at the top of government. Don't forget, I know it is a slightly different issue, but it was only in October we had this big scandal about Labour gifts and people buying Keir Starmer clothes, and various ministers getting tickets to Taylor Swift and Coldplay gigs. And they didn't really seem to understand what the issue was.
It's within the rules.
And again, it's happened now. They didn't really understand what everybody's getting so worked up about. But again, it didn't go away, and yeah, we'll see how it plays out.
Yeah. Exciting times at the Sun as well, because your editor-at-large, Harry Cole, he's been in this chair in the past. He's launching a new YouTube show from the States next week, and lots happening there. Donald Trump signing an executive order renaming the Department of Defence the Department of War.
Yes, I think this is due to happen today. Trump is going to sign this order, so yeah, it's a name change from defence to war. It's you know, there's lots of I don't know if I'd call them conspiracy theories, but there's lots of theories about what this might mean. But I mean, I think what it does is it sort of suggests that perhaps we've had this talk about the US wanting to go into Greenland, tackling Venezuela. We saw that they bombed this drug smuggling boat just this week. So it sort of signals that they're going to be a bit more offensive about some of the foreign policy issues that the US faces. It will be quite controversial, I think. But yeah, the point is, we've got a good feature in tomorrow from Harry Cole. Was our political editor. He's had a bump up. He's editor-at-large now, and he's in the US, and he's doing what he does best. You know, making friends in high places, and he's getting all the inside scoops over there. Lots of good stuff he's getting from Trump insiders. I mean, this feature he's got tomorrow is basically them saying, you in Britain are 15 years behind us. You know, all these issues that you've got with, you know, free speech, wokeness, that sort of stuff. We had that, and we had a political revolution, and that's what brought Trump into power. And you know, you may well experience this in the future. It's very interesting stuff, and obviously, you know, it comes on the same day that Farage is making speeches as well. So
certainly, well, we'll have a look for that in the paper tomorrow. We've talked before, John, about trigger warnings. Apparently, there's a death in the Nile.
Yeah, amazing. So this is the ultimate trigger warning story. You think we do them every week? A theatre or cinema has put trigger warnings. This is the Everyman Theatre in Cheltenham have managed to put trigger warnings on 22 of its upcoming plays. So basically, if you are scared of anything and you're thinking of going to see any of these plays, you are fully warned. So 2022 A Ghost Story contains ghosts.
Does it? Okay,
yeah, if you're worried about that.
Yeah.
There's a play about Britpop, and that contains references to drugs and alcohol.
Really? Who knew?
You've got, yeah, as you say, Death on the Nile. that has references to violence and murder.
Yeah.
There's Inspector Morse, discussions of death and murder.
Wow.
And
Midsummer Murders drama containing scenes about murder.
Well, yeah.
A Sherlock Holmes whodunit that contains scenes about crime.
Exactly, and I like the Stephen King's The Shawshank Redemption has scenes about prison.
Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So they might have actually ended this genre of story because I don't know if it can be beaten.
Yeah, I think that might be the high point. I think that the high water point. Although, sorry, trigger warning if you're afraid of water. Obviously, I perhaps shouldn't have said that. Let's talk about Viagra.
Yeah. Health story of today.
Tell me about this.
Health story cutting across social issues. So it's a proper scientific study from university in the Netherlands. Viagra is driving up the middle-aged divorce rate across the world because men, it's said, when they get into their 40s, lose a bit of their sex drive. And, you know, that sort of settles them into the marriage, and then you carry on plodding on for the next, however, 30, 40 years. But because of these drugs, Viagra, other brands are available, men can stay friskier and they're going out and cheating more.
Right.
And this is causing a collapse in marriage in those age brackets. So, yeah, it's very interesting. So we had around half of all separations are put down to infidelity. And sexual affairs are much more likely among men than women.
You've checked all this, John. You've managed to stand up the story.
Oh, yeah, this...
Good.
Oh,
Hey.
see what you did there. Yeah, very good. Very good. But, yeah, so it's the...
There we are. It's in the Sun tomorrow.
Yeah.
So if you want to read about Viagra, death being in Death in the Nile, the Department of Defence being called the Department of War, or the reshuffle, the Sun is your paper tomorrow. John, thank you very much. Have a lovely weekend. That is John Lucas there. He is the night news editor at the Sun. We'll take more of your calls next. Plenty to discuss. Plenty of people standing by as well. But get your call in too, 0344 499 1000, and we will talk to you in just a second.
across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Sarah's been in touch. She says, Phase 1, hell. Phase 2, more hell than Phase 1. Can't wait for Phase 3, says Sarah. John in Cornwall says, Starmer should go for Deputy Party Leader because he's no good in the job he's doing now. Stephen Bromsgrove says, Mahmood, Leader of Labour, what a joke. The country will then be truly buried. Penny in Essex says, Lammy is Deputy PM. Did you see him on Mastermind? I rest my case. We did see him on Mastermind. And if you didn't see Deputy Prime Minister David Lammy, yes, really, on Mastermind, I implore you, after this programme on another occasion, have a look on YouTube and see David Lammy on Mastermind. He is the Deputy Prime Minister of this country, and that's pretty scary. Peter, forget about Get In. I wish Labour would just get out. Very good point, to Get In being the title of Patrick Maguire and Gabriel Pogren's book, which I'm reading at the moment. John says, another fantastic reshuffle from Starmer, totally inspired. I can't wait for PMQs with the genius that is David Lammy, says Johnny in Yorkshire. Brad in Cambridge, look through the Labour benches, Peter. The reason that not many have gone in the reshuffle is due to the massive lack of talent. Grant in Leicestershire says, my main observation regarding the reshuffle is that it demonstrates that despite the huge majority, there's clearly a talent vacuum on the government benches. Another person, this is Colin in County Durham, says, hi again, Peter. Let me add, today's reshuffle can be described in 2 words, dead cat. You know what it means. Distract from a more uncomfortable issue. I hope Rayner isn't off the hook yet. She's only resigned from her ministerial post, but not from her seat as an MP. I think she should, but then she would have no value to the unions. Philip Roberts has been in touch and says, Dear Peter, why does every politician have to preface every answer with the word look? It's arrogant and demeaning. Good show. Let me be very clear, Philip. They often say let me be very clear as well. David in the Cotswolds says, afternoon, Peter. The mood music may feel in the country is the next election is going to be the most important one in modern history. It's the difference between the United Kingdom rebuilding with reform or collapsing into a third world septic island. That is amplified today with a mass gathering of like-minded people in Birmingham and the resignation of a high-profile Champion socialist, says David. Well, more coverage tomorrow of the Reform UK conference. I'm on between 10 and 1 on my Saturday show. I'm not here on Sunday. Ian Collins is here. Next week, drive a little bit different. Petrie Hoskins here on Monday between 4 and 7. Jeremy's doing Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. I will be back this day next week. On Friday, I'm taking a few days off. Let's speak to Steve in Harlow. Steve, you're very welcome to the programme. What would you like to say about Angela Rayner?
Hi, Peter. Yeah, I mean, she's got form as it is. I mean, she's a race horse. Should bet on her because, I mean, it's right from the get-go from power. Actually, you go back before that as you go into power Labour. Those giving the Conservatives a proper rundown about how corrupt they were, the backhanders they were getting. As soon as they was in power, backhanders, holidays, all sorts of things going on, getting handouts. Then she went with the...
I just got to be absolutely clear, there's no suggestion that Angela Rayner has received, as you say, backhanders. She's not corrupt in any way.
But I think everyone knows the score on that one. But I mean, I mean, I guess straight away she stopped, or pretty much stopped the right to buy after she had bought a house and made money on that. And then she had the audacity to say, we're going to do that to stop people making money on social housing, rightly or wrongly. Then she went on about, I think last year, she was on about every penny that doesn't go into the Chancellor is a damage to the public sector.
Well, you clearly think she's a hypocrite, Steve.
100%, yeah, you've got to stamp it. I was just saying that she's got a form in this ground of making money, but making sure other people...
Well, clearly there are many issues previously, and including in her own, with her own home in Ashton under Lyme, so you're right to point that out, Steve. Caroline is in London, wants to talk about David Lammy, our new Deputy Prime Minister. Caroline, what's your reaction to that?
Hi, Peter. Just a couple of points. I'll be quick.
Take your time, Caroline. I'm not rushing you.
Oh, thank you. So, firstly, I've got a tiny smile on my face today for the first time since this, I can't call them a government, whatever they are, got into power. And the reasons for that is I think I should write a screenplay of the last year of this government. I think it's going to be it could be very successful. That could be my new career. So that's right. In jest.
Okay.
But on a serious note, he's got nowhere to go after this.
A lot of people feeling that way today, Caroline. A lot of people feeling that he's kind of run out of people.
He's completely, and he's got nowhere to go, and things are going to get way worse, and people are going to get way angrier. And in a way, I think this is probably a good thing, because this is really waking people up. in the country. But I want Angela Rayner not to be allowed to be an MP anymore, because what she did was criminal. It was tax avoidance, and you would have been punished. I would have been
Caroline,
punished.
sorry, it wasn't criminal, but what she did was certainly avoidance. You don't think she should be an MP anymore?
Absolutely. What do we need her for? Well, look at the damage she's done. It is quite extraordinary. And the world, Peter, as we all know, is looking at this country and going, oh, my God, what is going on?
Yeah.
So in a way, it can't carry on and on and on. And he's really put himself in the corner now.
Okay.
And that's put a smile on my face.
Okay.
Right.
All right. Thank you for your thoughts there, Caroline. Really appreciate those, Caroline in London. Let's go west to South Wales. Philip has rung me from there, 0344 499 1000. Philip, you're very welcome to the programme. What would you like to say?
Hello, Peter. Fantastic show.
Thank you.
What I'd like to say is that Starmer has lied his way into office. He's going to lie his way out of office. He knew about this Angela Rayner last week. He knew all about it. And he's lying through his teeth. And Angela Rayner...
Well, he says he's followed the process. He's got this ministerial advisor in, this ethics advisor.
I don't believe him. But I don't believe him. He's lie. That's all he does is lie. Lie. Regarding the cabinet reshuffle today, shambles.
Are there any of them you trust, Philip? Is there anybody who's got a job today or moved in a job you think will make the country better?
Nothing at all. And that Lammy. Oh, can you imagine him when it comes to Prime Minister question times when he's...
Well, we'll see it. We'll bring it to you. We'll bring it to you here on Talk, Philip. We'll be talking about David Lammy. He'll be against. Who will he be against? Well, we don't know actually, because maybe Alex Burkhardt, maybe Mel Stride. They've had a number of different people from the Conservatives.
He's going to be a joke.
Well, we'll see. We'll certainly see what happens. Philip, thank you for your thoughts. Appreciate that. There's been a big day. We know Angela Rayner has resigned. We also know that Ian Murray is out as Scottish Secretary. Lucy Powell, as well, who was the leader of the House of Commons, is gone. She is gone from Cabinet, and quite a number of changes. The big one, of course, David Lammy, the Deputy Prime Minister. Yvette Cooper gone to the Foreign Office. New Home Secretary in Shabana, Mahmood as well. Lammy is the Justice Secretary as well as the Deputy Prime Minister. Reform UK conference coverage continues in Samara Gill's programme. You're with us now. Samara, how are you doing?
Hello, Peter. Not much going around today.
Very quiet day.
Yeah,
Very
honestly,
quiet day.
my heart rate's been totally fine. No, it's massive, and it's so great that you've been covering it the past 3 hours, because I've just been glued to my screen listening and watching, because, there's a lot to get into tonight. I mean, we're going to kind of go into the sort of shambolic records of some of these new appointees. I mean, I'm really just thinking, is this the best that Starmer's got? I mean, it's kind of depressing.
I mean, the new Deputy Prime Minister is the guy who gave away the Chagos Islands.
Yes, and let's not talk about him on quiz shows, because that's...
We've had a chat about that.
Yeah, I'm sure you have. But sorry, I mean, that's who's representing us.
Let me ask you the question. Who was the successor to Henry VIII? You may not know the answer, but the answer definitely wasn't Henry VII. That's what he said. Asked about a blue cheese. Which blue cheese is something? The answer was Stilton.
Yes, it was.
He said red Leicester.
Yes, which, I mean, for a man of, he should know his cheeses.
Who discovered radium? The answer is Marie Curie. He said Marie Antoinette.
Marie Antoinette, I remember. I mean, he's a Marie Antoinette himself, really. I mean, the whole Labour Party has revealed themselves to be sort of like that, and I think it's going to take a lot more than a little reshuffle to get the public back with them. And even then, it's sort of like your most hated just being put around like chess pieces on a board. Starmer's judgment's horrific, and we're going to get into why he's made these decisions. And I've got Pete Barnes, who's a political strategist. He knows his stuff. So I'll be listening away and also asking some tough questions. We've got Andrea Jenkins. We've got